A millionaire disguised himself as a waiter just for fun, but everything changed the moment he met a struggling single mom who stole his guarded heart. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. Later that same day, Oliver found himself stationed at the reception desk, learning how to check guests in, answer phone calls, and handle small inquiries about local attractions. Carla believed it was important for every member of the staff to rotate duties so they'd appreciate the entire operation. Oliver liked the idea. Every new role offered fresh insight into people and their stories. Plus, greeting guests face-to-face would give him more chances to connect on a personal level. The Riverside Boutique Hotel wasn't typically crowded on weekdays. Summer was still a few weeks away and peak tourist season hadn't started. Around mid-afternoon, the lobby was calm, giving Oliver a moment to breathe. He absent-mindedly organized pamphlets about boat rides and local hiking trails, all the while noticing how peaceful life felt here. Just as he started reading one of the brochures about the region's annual harvest festival, a familiar voice cut through his concentration. "Excuse me, would it be possible to have a quick chat with the manager?" It was Emma, the woman from the night before. She stood by the counter, wearing a modest blouse and a knee-length skirt. Her hair was neatly pulled back, and she had an air of slight urgency in her expression, as if she'd been rushing around. Oliver felt a twinge in his chest, that same quiet fascination from the night before catching him off guard. He set the brochure aside. "Certainly. Let me call Carla." He picked up the phone, noticing Emma tapping her foot anxiously. After 2 rings, Carla's cheerful voice answered from somewhere upstairs. Oliver explained that a guest wanted to see her. Emma opened her purse to produce a couple of papers, looking as though she might be replaying a mental checklist in her head. Carla arrived with her usual bright smile. "Emma, nice to see you. Is everything all right?" She spoke as if she already knew Emma somewhat personally, which intrigued Oliver. Emma nodded politely but looked a bit tense. "I was hoping you'd have a moment to discuss the possibility of part-time work. My schedule's a bit hectic these days, but I can manage a few hours in the mornings or evenings if there's anything available." Oliver tried not to stare. He knew from Carla's earlier comment that Emma was juggling multiple responsibilities, but now he was seeing it firsthand, someone courageous enough to seek even more work for the sake of her child. Carla led her to a side area near the lobby seating. "Of course, I've known you for a while, so I'm more than happy to see if we can fit you in. Let's go over times and tasks." Oliver returned his attention to the front desk, but found himself straining to hear snippets of conversation. Emma explaining she'd had to cut her hours at one of her jobs because the place was closing for renovations, Carla assuring her that even a few part-time shifts might help. Every so often, Emma would cast a self-conscious glance back toward Oliver, as though she felt uneasy discussing personal matters in earshot of a stranger, albeit a polite one. He tried to focus on scanning the next guest's reservation. Still, he couldn't ignore the quiet determination in Emma's voice. She didn't complain about life's difficulties. She only talked about solutions, about what she could do to stay afloat for Luca's sake. There was something about that resilience that Oliver found deeply admirable. A moment later, Carla called him over to their corner. "Oliver," she said, "I know you're relatively new, but do you think you could show Emma around the dining hall and explain the basics of server duties? If she picks up some shifts, that's likely where she'll start." He nodded, trying to calm the small flutter in his stomach. "Sure thing." Emma followed him into the dining room, which at this hour was mostly empty except for a single older couple sipping afternoon tea near a window. The sunlight streamed through, illuminating the polished tables and wooden beams. Oliver walked Emma through the layout, the service station where waiters pick up orders, the beverage corner, and the door to the kitchen. He demonstrated how the register worked, pointing out where to ring up different menu items. Emma listened with genuine focus. She asked a few clarifying questions, scribbling notes on a small pad of paper. Oliver observed how conscientious she was, making sure to remember every detail, meticulously repeating back what he said to confirm she understood. At one point, they reached the station for kids' menus and crayons. Emma smiled, picking up a coloring sheet. Luca will love this. He's in that phase where coloring is everything. Oliver felt an unexpected warmth in his chest. He seemed like a great kid when you brought him in last night. She glanced at him, momentarily surprised that he remembered them, but then her face softened. He is. He loves coming here because of the view of the river. Says it's like a moving painting. The conversation flowed easily after that. Emma's initial tension diminished. She relaxed enough to share a bit about her situation. She'd been working as a bank teller in the mornings and helping in a small retail shop in the evenings, but the shop was temporarily closing. She needed a replacement source of income. I could manage a few dinner shifts if Carla allows it, she explained. I'd just need to arrange for Luca to stay with my neighbor, or, if it's not too late, bring him along until the babysitter can pick him up. Oliver, trying to be professional, nodded, but he felt his heart twist. He understood that Emma wasn't just casually job hunting, she was trying to ensure her son's security in every sense, financial, emotional, practical. He realized that for all his fortune, he'd never known what it meant to juggle schedules like this just to keep life stable. As they continued, she asked him a question that caught him off guard. How long have you been working here, Oliver? I haven't seen you around before yesterday. His mind scrambled for a harmless lie. Oh, not long, he said lightly. Just a couple weeks. I'm still learning, actually. He tried to steer the conversation away from his own details. But I like it here. It's peaceful. She nodded thoughtfully. I can see why. Everyone seems kind. It dawned on him how easily he could have mentioned the family name in another life. Saying, I'm Oliver Grayson, would instantly shift the dynamic, possibly overshadowing every genuine moment. But he was determined to avoid that. Instead, he just offered a smile, noticing a slight wave of relief that Emma didn't press further. By the time they finished, Carla joined them. She told Emma they'd discuss the schedule and likely start her on 2 evening shifts a week just to get a feel for the work. Emma, grateful, thanked Carla before turning to Oliver. Thank you for taking the time to show me around, she said, a smile returning to her face. Any time, he replied softly. If you have any questions or need to practice any tasks, let me know. I'm happy to help. Emma nodded, gave a little wave, and headed to the lobby to finalize things with Carla. Oliver lingered in the dining room a moment, his thoughts churning. Emma was neither flashy nor demanding. Her life, from the glimpses he got, was filled with day-to-day concerns that most people in his old circle never had to face. And yet she navigated it all with grace. A pang of guilt flickered through him. What if, by not revealing who he was engaging in some twisted charade with an honest person who simply needed a stable job? But he reminded himself that his purpose was to connect authentically, to see if relationships, friendship or otherwise, could bloom without the weight of his last name. The next few days fell into a steady rhythm. Oliver took on more shifts in the dining room, occasionally handling housekeeping in the afternoons, and every so often helping Carla at the front desk. He was finding his stride in the quiet routine of the hotel, grateful no one recognized him as an heir to a renowned hotel empire. The staff treated him like any other new co-worker, sometimes ribbing him good-naturedly if he messed up an order, sometimes praising him when he quickly adapted. Meanwhile, Emma began her training. She arrived in the early evenings, greeting Oliver with a polite nod before clocking in. Her schedule was tight, so they usually had minimal overlap. A quick hello, maybe a short conversation about the evening's menu. Still, whenever they interacted, Oliver felt a gentle undercurrent of curiosity. He realized he anticipated her arrival, scanning the lobby at the start of each shift to see if she'd come in early, perhaps with Luca in tow. One evening, as Emma was about to start her shift, Luca accompanied her for the first time. He looked a bit sleepy, wearing colorful sneakers and holding a plastic water bottle. Emma explained she had about 30 minutes before her neighbor could pick him up, so she stationed him at a corner table with crayons while she tied her apron. Oliver was rearranging utensils at a nearby counter and offered Luca a friendly wave. "Hey, buddy," Oliver said. "I have a fresh coloring sheet if you want." Luca beamed, nodding. "Yes, please." His grin was bright, and Oliver couldn't help but see a flicker of the boy's excitement in Emma's expression, too. Oliver grabbed one of the hotel's kid-friendly coloring pages, an illustration of a scenic river scene, and handed it over. He crouched down next to Luca. "So, I hear you like the view of the river. Ever ride a boat?" The boy shook his head. "No, but I want to. Mom says maybe one day." Emma, returning from the kitchen, overheard them and added gently, "We'll see about that, kiddo. Maybe if you're super good and I can save a bit." Oliver felt a pinch of sadness. A boat tour on the river was likely nothing to the wealthy families he knew, just another quick outing. But to Emma and Luca, it was a future treat requiring planning and saving. It gave him perspective on the gulf between his old world and the life he was stepping into. A few minutes later, Emma's neighbor arrived, an older woman with a warm face, offering Luca a quick hug before escorting him home. Emma watched them go, exhaling as though she hoped everything would go smoothly in her absence. Oliver subtly noticed the relief and maternal concern crossing her features. Throughout that shift, Oliver and Emma crossed paths multiple times, delivering orders to tables or fetching drinks for the bar. At one point, they had to team up to serve a large group celebrating a birthday. Through the chaos of carrying trays and checking if guests needed anything, Emma and Oliver exchanged amused glances, like conspirators in the same mission. Whenever the group's conversation burst into laughter, Emma and Oliver would shoot each other a look, smiling at how hectic but fun it was to keep up. After the birthday party left, the dining room quieted. Emma and Oliver retreated to the service station, quickly wiping trays and reorganizing cutlery. Emma leaned on the counter, catching her breath. "I'm not sure how you manage this every day," she joked. "My feet are already protesting." Oliver laughed softly. "Trust me, I'm still learning. The first week I was here, I tripped over everything. My shoulders felt like they'd been hit by a truck from carrying so many plates." She laughed, a genuine sound that lit up her eyes. "And here I was, thinking you were a natural. You seem to handle it so smoothly." He shrugged, deciding honesty within his alias wouldn't hurt. "I had no clue how to do half this stuff until recently, but with practice and helpful co-workers you learn." Emma glanced at the clock, a flicker of concern. "I have to go soon. Luca's probably waiting, but thanks for the advice. And for making it all seem more manageable." Oliver nodded, something in him wishing they had more than stolen moments at the service station. "No problem. See you tomorrow?" she confirmed, untying her apron. "Tomorrow, yes. Another short shift." She paused, then offered him a sincere smile. "I appreciate your kindness, Oliver. Really." He stood there as she left, finding himself marveling at how a simple conversation with her could feel so grounding. Despite the swirl of deception behind his presence here, he'd rarely felt such sincerity in human interaction. That night, after the dining room closed and the last guests meandered to their rooms, Oliver took a moment to step outside. The crescent moon reflected on the silent river, and a cool breeze rustled the trees. The air was fragrant with summertime hints of wildflowers and damp earth. He leaned against a railing, replaying moments of the day, Emma's dedication to Luca, her relief at being offered a small shift, the spark in her eyes when she found a bit of joy in mundane tasks. He had never felt this comfortable around someone who didn't know his last name. Yet a worry nagged at him. If, and it was a big if, he ever grew closer to Emma, wouldn't the truth eventually surface? It seemed inevitable that she'd find out who he really was. Would she resent him for withholding his real identity? Oliver sighed, pushing the troubling question aside. For now, he reasoned, he should let the days unfold. He was living in the present, forging human connections that felt unforced. In the days that followed, Emma adapted quickly to her new schedule, impressing Carla with her organizational skills. The hotel guests appreciated Emma's calm, friendly manner. Oliver noticed how she always took a few extra seconds to chat with them, ask about their day, or bend down to a child's eye level to ensure they had the right flavor of ice cream. Sometimes he'd catch a glimpse of her motherly warmth shining through in the simplest tasks, and he also noticed the exhaustion Emma tried to hide. Dark circles under her eyes and the occasional stifled yawn after she'd finished a morning shift at the bank. Still, she never complained, never asked for anyone's pity. Oliver found himself respecting her more each time they worked side by side. One afternoon, Carla assigned them both to reorganize an old storage closet in the back of the kitchen, a dimly lit room packed with mismatched chairs, outdated linens, and random decor from past seasons. For over an hour, Oliver and Emma sorted through dusty boxes, deciding which items were still usable. They labored in close quarters, occasionally bumping elbows as they worked. "Is it always this cluttered?" Emma asked, coughing gently from the dust. Oliver grinned. "I guess so. The hotel's been around for years, and I think nobody wanted to part with old furniture or decorations." He pulled out a gaudy, glittery reindeer statue. "Exhibit A, leftover from some holiday extravaganza, I'm assuming." Emma covered her mouth to hide a laugh. "Should I ask how many years that's been shoved in a corner?" They shared a moment of amusement, and Oliver felt the space between them shrink. Their conversation meandered between playful banter and glimpses into their lives. Emma, carefully stacking linens, mentioned how Luca recently started picking up on big words and used them at random. Oliver, switching out her full box for an empty one, admitted he'd grown up with a strict family, but skipped the details. Both recognized that they tiptoed around deeper truths, but neither pushed. Eventually, they finished. Emma perched on a sturdy wooden box, wiping the sweat from her brow, while Oliver leaned against a wall, exhaling. He realized that, as menial as this chore was, it had allowed them an uninterrupted hour to connect, bantering over silly items and learning small pieces about each other. Carla's voice echoed from the corridor, calling them back. Emma hopped off the box, smiling at Oliver. "We should probably get out of here before we find more glittery reindeer." Oliver laughed, stepping aside to let her pass. He felt a twinge of regret as they left the quiet closeness of that cramped room. It was fleeting, but real, reminding him that closeness doesn't always blossom in grand gestures. Sometimes it's in the small tasks, the shared jokes, the unspoken empathy. Without question, something was growing between them. A soft, unspoken bond that defied Oliver's original plan to simply blend in. Whether it would lead to genuine love or heartbreak remained unclear, especially with the weight of his hidden identity looming. But for the moment, Oliver chose to embrace whatever this new connection might become, carrying within him a cautious hope that maybe he had finally discovered a piece of what he'd been missing all those years. During the subsequent week, the Riverside Boutique Hotel buzzed with talk of a local celebration. The Harvest Fair was arriving in town. Banners and posters popped up on street corners, inviting everyone to enjoy food stalls, crafts, and live music by the river. The entire hotel staff, including Carla, was eager to promote the event to guests, offering suggestions on what to see, which booths to visit, and the best times to go. Oliver noticed Emma's excitement about the fair. She shyly mentioned that Luca had been saving loose change in a small piggy bank to buy sweets or maybe a balloon at the festival. "He's been counting his coins every night," she laughed softly one afternoon while they restocked coffee cups in the dining room. "Keeps insisting he'll have enough for both of us to share." Oliver grinned. "That's great. Are you taking him for sure?" Emma nodded, carefully placing each cup in neat rows. "I'd like to. It's a nice break for him. Between his schoolwork and all my shifts, we haven't done anything fun in a while. But we'll see." She paused, and he caught a fleeting hint of worry cross her face, as though she was uncertain about scheduling or funds, or maybe both. A few days later, Carla gave Emma the night off for the festival, insisting she'd earned it. Delighted, Emma told Oliver she planned to take Luca around sunset. "He loves lights," she said with a smile, "and that's when the fair's liveliest." Oliver was glad for her. He wanted to go himself, partly out of curiosity, partly because he sensed Emma would be there. Yet he wasn't sure if he should suggest meeting up. He didn't want to overstep or make her uncomfortable. Instead, he kept his intentions private, thinking he might simply appear at the fair on his own. The evening of the harvest fair arrived under a brilliant setting sun. Strings of colored lights spanned between wooden posts, local vendors sold homemade pastries and honey, and children raced around a small carnival area squealing with delight. Music drifted from a stage at the far end of the fairgrounds, where a local band played upbeat folk tunes. The entire scene had a warm, welcoming energy that reminded Oliver of simpler times, perhaps a glimpse of the life he'd been missing. He walked among the booths, wearing casual clothes, a light jacket, jeans, and sneakers, and kept an eye out for Emma and Luca. He stopped once to admire handmade ceramics, another time to sample spiced cider. After a few minutes, he spotted them near a stand that sold cotton candy. Emma bent down to let Luca select his favorite color while the boy practically jumped with excitement. Oliver hesitated for a moment, wondering if he should approach. But then Luca spotted him, eyes lighting up with recognition. "Mom, look! It's Oliver!" Emma turned, a slightly surprised smile forming. "Hi," she greeted, stepping away from the candy stall so they didn't block the next customers. Luca dashed forward, brandishing a fluffy swirl of pink cotton candy. "Look what I got!" he exclaimed. Oliver chuckled, crouching to Luca's level. "That's almost as big as your head. Bet it tastes amazing." "It does," Luca said around a mouthful of sugary fluff. Then, remembering his manners, he offered Oliver a piece. "You want some?" "Sure," Oliver replied, touched by the boy's generosity. He pinched off a small bit of spun sugar. It melted on his tongue instantly, sweet and light, making him grin. "Thanks, buddy." Emma gave a quiet laugh, stepping aside to let a group of passing fairgoers walk by. "Didn't expect to see you here," she admitted, though without any hint of displeasure. She glanced at his jacket, then around at the bustling fair. "Enjoying the harvest fair so far?" "It's my first time at something like this," he said honestly. "I love the atmosphere. Thought I'd come check it out after my shift." A comfortable silence passed between them as they stood amid the cheerful chaos, children running past, music thumping in the background, and the sugary aroma of funnel cakes wafting on the breeze. Luca tugged on Emma's sleeve, pointing to a small ring toss game nearby. "Can I try, Mom? I have enough coins for it." Emma nodded, and the three of them wandered toward the booth. It featured a lineup of glass bottles in rows. Players had to toss rings around the bottlenecks to win plush prizes. Luca bounced on his toes, carefully counting out the coins from his pocket. Oliver noticed the serious look on his face, as though he were about to perform a major sporting feat. The boy aimed carefully but missed his first toss by a wide margin. On the second, the ring wobbled and fell short. He let out a frustrated little sigh. Emma rubbed his back in encouragement. "You'll get it," she said gently. Oliver crouched down, offering a suggestion. "Try to release the ring a bit sooner. Here, watch." He mimed an underhand toss without letting go, showing Luca the motion. Taking a breath, Luca tossed again. The ring still clinked off the bottle, but it landed closer. "Almost," Oliver grinned. "One more shot." On his last try, Luca flung the ring in an awkward arc. Oliver was certain it would miss, but somehow, by a stroke of luck, the ring looped perfectly around the neck of a bottle near the edge. The booth worker shouted, "We have a winner!" Luca's face lit up with pure delight, and Emma let out a quiet, proud laugh. As a prize, Luca chose a small stuffed animal shaped like a turtle. He held it as if it were a trophy he'd earned with great effort, glancing at Oliver as if to say thanks without using words. Emma beamed at her son, then turned to Oliver. "We appreciate the tip," she teased. "Next time we'll drag you along as the official ring toss coach." He shrugged modestly, relieved to see both of them happy. "Any time." They continued meandering through the fair together, sampling sweet fried dough and listening to the local band. Oliver felt his chest warm at how natural it was to be at Emma's side. There was no pretense, no sense that she was trying to impress him or use him for connections. The closeness was entirely genuine, built on small shared moments, like dusty storage closet tasks and ring toss guidance. At one point, as they paused near a booth selling homemade jams, Emma stepped aside to answer her phone. Oliver assumed it might be the babysitter or her neighbor. However, the way her face fell during the conversation suggested something more serious. When she hung up, she forced a small smile. "Sorry," she murmured to Oliver. "That was my landlord. Seems I'm behind on a payment for the month. They threatened a late fee." She sighed. "I'll handle it, but it's just one more thing to juggle." Oliver's mind raced with the urge to help. Paying a late fee was trivial money for him, but he couldn't exactly reveal that. Instead, he gave a sympathetic nod. "That's tough. Maybe Carla can squeeze in more hours for you next week?" he offered tentatively. Emma gave a faint shrug. "I'll talk to her, but it's okay. I've been in tighter spots. I always figure something out." She tried to rally her spirit for Luca's sake. "Anyway," she said more brightly, noticing Luca was absorbed in cuddling his new stuffed turtle, "let's not let that spoil the evening. He's having a blast." They continued strolling, but Oliver sensed Emma's underlying tension. It wasn't the first time he'd witnessed how precarious her financial situation was. Every instance of stress or shortfall seemed to test her mettle, and every time she faced it head-on, determined to protect Luca from any ripple of anxiety. Oliver couldn't help but admire that kind of fortitude, something he'd never had to cultivate in his cushiony upbringing. As twilight deepened, the festival lights grew more enchanting, string after string twinkling overhead. Luca began yawning intermittently, clinging to Emma's hand. "Ready to head back?" Oliver asked softly, noticing Emma eyeing her sleepy son. She nodded. "I think so. He's just about done." Then, remembering Oliver had come alone, she hesitated. "We can walk with you toward the exit if you want." "I'd like that," he said, a gentle warmth in his voice. They navigated through the crowd, passing a final row of food stands and music lovers still dancing. At the festival gate, they paused in a more open space. Luca rubbed his eyes, leaning on Emma's shoulder. Oliver shoved his hands in his pockets, not wanting the moment to end. "Thanks for letting me tag along. This was fun," he told Emma. She smiled, adjusting Luca's weight slightly. "I'm glad you joined us. It made the night easier, especially with me juggling a giant cotton candy, a stuffed turtle, and a hyper little boy." Oliver chuckled. "Anytime. I'll always volunteer to help a champion ring tosser." They both laughed quietly, each perhaps aware that an unspoken connection had grown stronger tonight. Then Emma turned her attention fully to Luca, who was practically dozing off. "We should get going," she said. "He can barely keep his eyes open." Oliver nodded. He wanted to at least see them safely to their car or a taxi, but Emma had come on foot from a nearby bus stop. Oliver offered to walk them part way, but Emma declined politely. "We're just a few blocks away. I'll manage." For a brief second, Oliver wondered if he should push, but sensed she valued her independence. Emma extended her gratitude once more, her eyes reflecting a hint of vulnerability behind her gracious smile. "Thanks, Oliver, for everything." With that, she left, guiding a dozy Luca into the night. Oliver stood by the fair entrance until they disappeared around a corner, a dozen mixed emotions stirring in his chest. admiration, concern, and a budding affection that was more than he'd felt for anyone in a long time. He didn't sleep well that night. His mind replayed Emma's landlord phone call, thinking of her exhaustion, her resilience. She rarely complained, but he'd seen in her eyes the burden she carried. On a whim, he texted Dylan, his best friend and confidant for the secret plan, to see if there was any discreet way he could offer help. After all, Dylan was the only one who truly knew Oliver's real identity and had the legal savvy to keep it hidden. Dylan replied briskly, "You can't blow your cover. If you pay her bills out of nowhere, she might suspect. Tread carefully." Oliver sighed. He didn't want to patronize Emma or insult her pride, but he hated standing by while she struggled. For now, it seemed there was no easy solution. He decided to respect her independence and wait, focusing instead on the quiet bond they had formed. The next day at the hotel, the entire staff buzzed with stories of the fair. Guests swapped tales of funnel cakes and local bands, while employees teased each other about who had danced the most. Emma arrived looking slightly tired, likely from a late return home, but still wore her calm, pleasant demeanor. Oliver only had a chance to greet her briefly before heading to the laundry area. By mid-afternoon, Carla assigned them both to the dining room for dinner service. Emma was tying her apron when Oliver approached, wearing a grin. "How's Luca this morning? Recover from the sugar rush?" Emma chuckled. "He slept like a rock after we got home. Woke up bragging about his ring toss victory to the neighbor, and that stuffed turtle is apparently the new best friend." "That's adorable," Oliver said, gently draping a clean tablecloth over a corner table. "I'm glad he had a good time." "Me too," Emma replied, smoothing the apron strings. She hesitated a moment, then gave Oliver a softer look. "Thank you, by the way, for being so nice to him, and to me. Yesterday was really nice." Oliver felt a slight rush of warmth at her words. "I enjoyed it too." They shared a smile, and for that second, the rest of the bustling dining room faded into the background. The easy closeness returned, as though the fair had unlocked a new level of comfort between them. But the hush of that moment quickly dissipated when a group of unexpected guests arrived. An upscale family of 5, complete with designer luggage and a haughty air about them. Carla rushed in, whispering that they were from out of town and had decided to stay for dinner. "We need to impress them," she murmured, "so they'll keep the reservation for the suite upstairs." Oliver braced himself. He recognized these types, the wealthy or socially prominent folks who might have once been at the same parties as the Grayson family. He hoped none of them had met him before. Throughout the evening, Emma and Oliver worked side by side to serve the table, taking care to present the hotel's best image. The father of the family snapped his fingers if service was even slightly delayed, and the teenage daughter rolled her eyes each time Emma tried to confirm her meal preference. Oliver noticed Emma's gracious composure, even when the family's demands grew borderline rude. At one point, the mother complained about the lighting being too dim. Emma calmly adjusted the nearby lamp. A moment later, they insisted the soup was too cold, forcing Oliver to run to the kitchen to reheat it. Emma offered polite apologies, returning with fresh bread rolls that they barely touched. Though the family's behavior tested everyone's patience, Oliver felt proud of how Emma handled it. She remained unflappable and poised, just as professional as any seasoned waiter. Watching her carry plates and respond to huffs and sighs with a serene smile gave him a glimpse of her adaptability under pressure. If he hadn't known she was new to this line of work, he would have assumed she had years of fine dining experience. When the dinner finally ended and the family retreated upstairs, Emma sighed heavily in the service station, leaning her elbow on the counter. "That was intense," she murmured. "I'm half expecting them to complain about the pillows next." Oliver chuckled, feeling the aftershock of tension fade. "They might. But you handled that like a pro, Emma." She looked up, catching his supportive tone. "Thanks. I'm just relieved it's over." Carla popped her head in, offering them a conspiratorial grin. "You two did great. They didn't complain once at the front desk, which is a miracle. Keep this up and I'll have to give you both raises." Then, with a playful wink, she scurried off to handle something else. Oliver turned to Emma. "You see? Even Carla noticed." Emma's lips curved in a tired but genuine smile. "I guess so. I just hope tomorrow's crowd is easier." Before they parted ways that night, Oliver found himself lingering in the hallway as Emma retrieved her coat. An impulse pushed him to speak. "If, you ever want to talk about stuff like your landlord situation or anything, I'm here to listen. No pressure." She paused, coat draped over her arm, eyes flicking across his face. "That's kind, Oliver. I appreciate it," she said quietly. "I don't usually vent much. People have their own problems, you know. But maybe someday." Oliver nodded, respecting her boundaries. "Whenever you're comfortable." "Thank you," she repeated, offering a sincere nod of gratitude before heading off to clock out. Watching her go, Oliver felt a certain ache in his chest, the desire to help, to be more present in her life, balanced against the reality that he was living under a guise. He wondered how she would react if she knew he possessed a fortune that could solve her landlord issue in a heartbeat. Would she resent him, or feel humiliated by the difference in their statuses? He shook his head. No sense in tormenting himself with those questions yet. Perhaps Emma would never need to know. Perhaps he would leave this job eventually, returning to his old world, but carrying a changed perspective. But he couldn't deny the truth any longer. He cared deeply about Emma and Luca more than he'd ever anticipated when he first embarked on this undercover endeavor. That realization both thrilled and terrified him. He only hoped he could continue walking the delicate line between truth and lie without breaking the fragile trust Emma had begun to place in him. Oliver woke the next morning feeling uncharacteristically restless. His mind wandered to Emma as soon as he opened his eyes. Her laughter at the fair, the gentle determination in her expression when dealing with that difficult family at dinner service. Even in the fleeting moments of quiet, she had become an undercurrent in his thoughts. He tried to remind himself that he was here under false pretenses. Still, he couldn't quell the surge of warmth he felt each time he remembered some small detail about her or Luca. The day began with a routine assignment. Oliver was placed in the laundry area to fold fresh linens. This was the kind of menial task he found surprisingly soothing. There, with the low hum of machines and the warmth of fabric fresh from the dryer, he had time to think. Yet his thoughts kept circling back to Emma's landlord troubles. He recalled her worried expression, how she shrugged it off yet clearly felt the weight of it. Every instinct told him to help. But how? Shortly after midday, he stepped away from the laundry room to grab a quick sandwich in the staff break area. Carla cornered him in the hall, asking if he could handle a special errand. The local bakery had messed up a cake order for a small event in the hotel's meeting room that evening. "They need a new design, and I have no one else free to run over there," Carla explained, handing him some notes and money. Oliver agreed, seeing a chance to get some fresh air. By early afternoon, he was on his way to the bakery, a short walk from the hotel. The sky was overcast, a dull gray that threatened rain. When he arrived, he noticed the shop was empty except for a single teenage cashier reading a magazine behind the counter. While waiting for the baker to fix the last touches on the replacement cake, Oliver scanned the shelves filled with pastries, fresh bread, and delicate frosting-topped cupcakes. A soft chime above the door signaled a new customer. To his mild surprise, Emma stepped inside wearing a light sweater. She seemed just as startled to see him. "Oliver, do you live in here?" she joked, noticing the bakery's boxes scattered on the counter. He held up the receipt. "Carla's errand. You?" Emma smiled sheepishly. "I had a quick break from my morning shift at the bank. Figured I'd pick up something for Luca's class bake sale tomorrow. I promised him brownies, but I'm useless at baking." He chuckled, imagining Emma juggling a spatula in a flour-dusted kitchen. "So, store-bought brownies it is?" Her grin deepened. "Exactly. Don't tell him my secret." They ended up chatting near the display of pastries while waiting for their respective orders. Oliver felt a tiny spark of joy at these small coincidences that brought them together. It was as though fate kept intertwining their paths in the most ordinary places. First the fair, now a bakery. She paid for her brownies, slipping them carefully into a paper bag. As she waited for him to finalize the cake pickup, she checked her phone. A slight frown flickered across her face when she read something on the screen. Oliver noticed. "Everything okay?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I'm fine. Just more reminders about rent. My landlord texted." She lowered her phone, exhaling. "I'm short this month. It's a bigger amount than usual and the late fee isn't helping." The words tumbled out of Oliver's mouth before he could rethink them. "Would you let me loan you the difference?" He wasn't sure where that boldness came from, only that seeing her distressed made him want to intervene. Her eyes flashed with surprise, then caution. "Oh, I couldn't, Oliver. I appreciate it, but it's a lot, and we barely know each other." He sensed her pride bristle. Realizing he might have overstepped, he tried to soften his approach. "I'm sorry. It just came out. I hate seeing you stressed. I know what it's like to worry about money." That was a lie in some ways, but the sentiment behind it was genuine. She managed a small, grateful smile. "I really do appreciate the thought, but I'll figure something out. I always do." They were interrupted by the baker, who handed Oliver the finished cake, now properly decorated with the hotel's event details. The moment left them both feeling slightly awkward. As they walked out together, Emma held her paper bag protectively, and Oliver carried the oversized cake box. Outside, a drizzle had begun. Oliver glanced at Emma. "Do you have an umbrella?" She shook her head, her expression resigned. "Didn't think it would rain, it was cloudy, but—" "Come on," he said, tilting his chin toward the bus stop. "We can share mine. I'll walk you at least part way." Under the shelter of Oliver's small umbrella, they took careful steps. The city's sidewalks glistened, and the faint smell of wet concrete mingled with the sweet bakery scents clinging to their clothes. Occasionally, Emma had to adjust her hold on the brownies, and Oliver had to angle the umbrella so the cake box wouldn't get soaked. It was both funny and tender, this balancing act beneath the patter of rain. They stopped at a street corner where Emma would head one way to her apartment and Oliver needed to loop back to the hotel. "Thank you," she said again, clutching the paper bag. The reflection of raindrops sparkled on her sweater. He nodded, giving her a gentle look. "Sure. I'll see you at the hotel tomorrow." "Actually, no," Emma replied with a hint of regret. "I'm at the bank all day, but I'll be back the day after, evening shift." Oliver tried not to show his disappointment. "Right, well, take care and stay dry." She flashed him a soft grin and dashed off, arms wrapped around her brownies bag, crossing the wet intersection. Oliver watched her until she disappeared around a corner. Only then did he realize he was standing in the drizzle, water now spattering off the cake box. He hurried back toward the hotel, mind spinning with a mixture of concern and admiration for Emma. When Oliver returned, Carla teased him for taking so long. "I was about to send a rescue team. That cake must be a masterpiece." He simply rolled his eyes good-naturedly, delivering the box to the meeting room. The rest of the day blurred by in a series of tasks, setting up the event space, sorting a minor billing issue at the front desk, and training a new part-timer on how to handle breakfast rush. Yet through it all, Oliver's thoughts drifted repeatedly to Emma's expression in the bakery. The mild panic in her eyes over rent money, the quiet determination that she wouldn't accept charity. He admired her pride, though it also frustrated him. During a short break in a secluded corridor, he texted Dylan again, "What if I create some arrangement to pay her landlord anonymously?" The instant he sent it, he felt a pang of guilt. Was he meddling too much? Dylan's reply came swiftly. Risky. She might get suspicious if she suddenly doesn't owe rent. You sure you want to do that? Oliver ruffled his hair in exasperation. He typed back, I just don't want her stressed out, but I guess you're right, I'll hold off. He tucked his phone away. Maybe there was a middle ground, some way to indirectly boost her hours or help with tips, but everything felt like a potential breach of her trust. Later that night, Carla pulled him aside. How about I give Emma a few more evening shifts next week? She asked, clearly reading Oliver's thoughts. She's proven herself pretty good with customers. Might help her out a bit, you know? Oliver brightened. That'd be great. If we can juggle schedules to make it work for her, she'd appreciate it. Carla grinned knowingly. That's what I'm thinking. I noticed the two of you get along well. You're a good team. He tried to hide the color rising in his cheeks. Just co-workers helping each other out. Carla gave him a playful nudge. Sure. Anyway, I'll talk to Emma tomorrow. 2 days passed and Emma returned for her evening shift. Oliver felt the usual spark of anticipation as she walked in, hair slightly damp from the drizzle, a warm but tired smile on her face. She clocked in, joining him by the hostess stand to review the reservation list. They had a moderate dinner crowd tonight, a couple of small groups, a few solo travelers, and 2 families. Nothing too chaotic. Carla sidled up to them. Emma, I was thinking we could add an extra shift or 2 for you next week, if you're up for it. Emma's eyes widened with relief. Yes, absolutely. That would help so much. Oliver glimpsed a cloud of tension lift from her features and his heart silently soared. Carla handed Emma a revised schedule, and Emma gave Oliver a grateful glance as if suspecting he'd had something to do with it. He offered a tiny smile in return. The dinner service went smoothly. In a lull between tables, Oliver found Emma crouched by a side station, adjusting silverware in a drawer. He stepped over quietly. Glad you'll get more shifts. Should ease some pressure, huh? She nodded, looking up. It will, definitely. Thanks for mentioning it to Carla. I suspect she didn't just come up with it on her own. He shrugged modestly. Maybe I hinted, but you earned it, Emma. You handle customers better than most of us. A slight blush tinted her cheeks. Well, it's not easy sometimes, but I appreciate the support. They held each other's gaze for a moment, the clatter of plates in the background feeling distant. Emma started to speak, then shut her mouth as though rethinking her words. Oliver leaned in a fraction, curious. What is it? He asked gently. She glanced at the floor, then back at him. It's silly. I was just thinking, I might take Luca on that riverboat tour soon. He's been begging. But part of me wonders if you... She broke off, looking self-conscious. If you'd like to come? Oliver's eyes widened in pleasant surprise. You mean with you and Luca? She nodded, lips curving in a half-smile. He's taken a real liking to you and, well, if you want, no pressure? Her voice betrayed a glimmer of hope, as if bracing for rejection. A warmth spread through Oliver's chest. I'd love to, he answered, trying not to sound too eager. I mean, yeah, that sounds great. Whenever works for you. Emma brightened. We'll figure it out soon. Maybe a Sunday morning, when the water's calm. Oliver found himself smiling so broadly that a passing colleague teased him. Hey, Oliver, you look like you just found a gold nugget in the cutlery bin. He hastily composed himself, but Emma giggled quietly, which only made him grin again. By the end of the shift, they had decided on a tentative date for the boat ride. 2 weeks from now, once Emma's schedule eased and she had a bit of extra tip money saved. The plan left Oliver buzzing with anticipation. He pictured Emma and Luca's excitement, maybe the 3 of them taking in the scenic views. It was the closest thing to a genuine family outing Oliver had ever planned with anyone, and it both thrilled and unsettled him. As Emma gathered her things in the staff room, Oliver hovered by the doorway. Are you heading straight home? Need me to walk you, or are you good? She gave him a fond look. I'm okay. It's not too late, and the neighbor is at home with Luca, but thank you. Then, after a moment of hesitation, she placed a gentle hand on his arm. "You know, you're a good person, Oliver. I'm glad we met." Her touch, light though it was, sent a current through him. He swallowed. I'm glad too." They exchanged a simple goodbye, but Oliver felt the emotional weight behind it. After she left, he wandered through the quiet corridors of the hotel, switching off lights and tidying chairs left out of place. 1,000 thoughts roared in his mind, chief among them that Emma believed him to be just another earnest employee in this modest hotel. That evening, alone in his small staff room bed, Oliver replayed the day's moments. Emma's shy invitation, the new schedule, her fleeting hand on his arm. In the hush of night, the reality struck him again. If she found out who he truly was, heir to the Grayson Empire, would she see him differently? Would it break her trust? Yet he couldn't deny the joy blossoming inside him. For the first time in years, he felt truly himself around someone who had no agenda beyond honest friendship and potentially love. The blossoming bond with Emma and Luca felt more sincere than any lavish gift or exclusive VIP event from his old life. He resolved to continue carefully, letting Emma guide how close they became. If the time came to confess his identity, he wanted her to at least understand that the Oliver she had come to know was genuine, that he wasn't playing a game with her heart. With that final thought, he drifted off into a restless sleep, torn between the sweetness of what he was building and the fear of secrets that might one day unravel everything. The next few days at the Riverside Boutique Hotel were a whirlwind of activity. A corporate seminar had booked the meeting room for 3 mornings in a row, and the organizers wanted breakfast buffets, coffee breaks, and catered lunches. Oliver found himself juggling multiple roles, sometimes helping Carla in reception, other times rushing to refill coffee urns or gather used dishes before the lunch crowd arrived. Amid the busyness, Emma's new schedule kicked in. She now had an evening shift almost every night that week, and Oliver caught glimpses of her managing the dinner service like a pro. Yet he also noticed the signs of fatigue etched on her face, lighter than before but still there. She was working at the bank by day and the hotel by night, leaving little downtime. Even so, every time their eyes met, maybe at the coffee station or while exchanging quick instructions about a table, she offered a small, tired smile that warmed Oliver's heart. Late one afternoon, while he was rearranging chairs in the seminar room, Carla approached him with that particular glint in her eye, one that usually meant she had news or a request. "Oliver, can I steal a minute of your time?" "Sure," he said, straightening up. He set aside the last chair and followed her into a quieter corner of the room. Carla clasped her hands. "We have an unusual situation. The Grayson family, well, not the entire family, but apparently a representative or associate, emailed me about possibly visiting this hotel for a surprise inspection. They want to ensure we're up to brand standards before the official unveiling in a couple of months." Oliver's stomach gave a sharp twist. Of course, he'd known it was only a matter of time before someone from his family or their executives wanted to check on things, but hearing Carla mention it casually sent a jolt of fear through him. "Huh," he managed, trying to sound neutral. "Do we know when?" Carla shook her head. "They were vague. Could be next week, could be next month. They just said they'd inform us a few days beforehand. I wanted to let you know in case we need all hands on deck to impress them." She sighed. "I'm a little nervous. You know how these big chains can be." Oliver forced a nod, swallowing the tightness in his throat. "Sure. Well, let me know how I can help. We'll make a good impression." Carla patted his arm. "I appreciate your attitude. I might need everyone to put in some extra hours to tidy everything top to bottom. Kitchens, rooms, the yard, everything." "Count me in," Oliver replied, working hard to keep his voice steady. Inside, his thoughts raced. If a Grayson inspector recognized him, his entire cover would be blown. He'd have to leave abruptly, or face revealing his identity to Emma and the staff on the spot. Neither scenario felt right. He spent the remainder of the day on edge, trying to act normal while the possibility of a surprise visit hovered in his mind. That evening, Emma arrived for her shift. As usual, they exchanged a friendly greeting, but Oliver's tension must have shown on his face because Emma furrowed her brow in concern. "You okay?" she asked softly, stepping aside so a passing waiter could reach the glasses. "Yeah," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Just a hectic day. Nothing major." She gave him a searching look but seemed to accept his answer, letting it drop. Together they ran through the dinner bookings. It was a moderate crowd again, meaning they had enough time to chat between taking orders, but Oliver struggled to focus on small talk, his brain busy rehearsing potential excuses if someone from Grayson HQ showed up unexpectedly. Halfway through the evening, a small group of guests strolled in, an older gentleman and two younger associates. Oliver's heart skipped a beat, worried they might be from Grayson, but the older man introduced himself as part of a local historical society renting space in the hotel next month. No immediate threat. Emma watched Oliver discreetly as he delivered water to the group. She caught him exhaling in relief once they'd sat. At the nearest station, she spoke quietly. "Oliver, are you sure nothing's wrong? You've been jumpy since I got here." "Just a lot on my mind," he murmured, managing a half-smile. "I'm okay, really." Her hand grazed his forearm for a second, the lightest, reassuring touch. "If you say so, but I'm here if you need to talk." He took comfort in her gentle sincerity, wishing he could confide the truth, that the owners she worked under, well, one of them was standing right in front of her. But he couldn't. Not yet. When the shift ended and Emma prepared to leave, Oliver lingered with a sense of longing. He dreaded the next day's unknowns. "Do you have a day off soon?" he asked, accompanying her to the staff room. She shook her head ruefully. "Not for a while, but Sunday is still open for that boat ride we talked about, if you're still up for it." His spirit lifted at the reminder. "Definitely. I'm looking forward to it." Emma seemed relieved he hadn't forgotten. "Me too. Luca's been asking non-stop if it's still on." Oliver's chest warmed. "Tell him yes, and we can treat it like a mini-adventure." She rewarded him with a grateful smile before gathering her purse. Once again, Oliver offered to walk her out, but she politely declined. "I'll be fine," she said, the same quiet confidence he'd come to recognize. "You rest. You've been here all day." He walked her to the lobby doors anyway, stopping just short of stepping outside. After she left, he stood at the glass, watching Emma's silhouette fade into the evening shadows. An ache pulsed beneath his ribs. Someday soon, he'd have to come clean, or events would force his hand. But first, he wanted her to trust him for who he was, not just for the name or money behind him. Over the next few mornings, Oliver combed through every corner of the hotel, imagining what a critical Grayson representative might say. Were the carpets pristine? Were the walls freshly painted? He found himself tidying small scuffs on the baseboards, checking that the staff break room was neat and ensuring the front steps were free of debris. Carla seemed pleased if a bit perplexed by his sudden zeal for order. "You're the most thorough staff member I've got," she joked once, stumbling upon him scrubbing a tiny stain out of the lobby rug. "I think you're more prepared for a Grayson inspection than they are." Oliver laughed it off, though anxiety gnawed at him inside. The tension only eased slightly when Carla told him she still hadn't received any specific date from the Grayson people. "Maybe we have a bit more time," she said with a shrug. Still, Oliver couldn't let his guard down. Every time a guest in a sharp suit appeared, he'd brace himself, only to breathe a sigh of relief when they asked ordinary tourist questions. In the midst of his internal turmoil, Sunday arrived. Finally, the day of the boat ride with Emma and Luca. Oliver woke early, a small thrill rippling through him. He dressed in casual jeans and a light sweater, took a quick breakfast in the staff lounge, then hurried outside to meet them by the river pier. The day was bright and crisp, the water glimmering under a gentle sun. When he saw Emma and Luca waiting at the dock, he felt a surge of calm joy. Emma wore a simple blouse and jeans, her hair loosely tied back. Luca clutched the stuffed turtle he'd won at the fair, showing no sign of letting it go. "Oliver!" the boy shouted, running up. "We're going on a boat!" Oliver laughed, reaching out to high-five him. "Morning, buddy. Ready for an adventure?" "Yeah." Luca hopped excitedly. Emma greeted Oliver with a shy smile. "Hope you don't mind the early start. Luca's been wide awake since 6, counting down the minutes." "I love early mornings," Oliver lied a little. He was typically not a morning person, but for this, he'd happily make an exception. They boarded a small tour boat that offered rides along a scenic stretch of river dotted with willow trees and gentle slopes. Emma paid for 3 tickets. Though Oliver tried to discreetly cover the cost, Emma insisted it was her treat. "You've already done enough," she said softly, referencing his attempts to support her at the hotel. The boat was only half full, mostly families with kids or couples seeking a tranquil weekend outing. They found a spot near the bow where Luca could lean over the railing under Emma's watchful eye. The guide explained the local history over a crackly speaker, pointing out various landmarks along the riverbank. Oliver marveled less at the scenery, though it was beautiful, and more at the delight in Emma's and Luca's eyes. Luca especially looked enchanted, pointing to every bird or random ripple in the water with exclamations of wonder. Emma, for her part, seemed more relaxed than Oliver had ever seen her, lulled by the soft breeze and the easy conversation they shared. Halfway through, as the boat gently glided past a cluster of tall reeds, Emma turned to Oliver. "I can't remember the last time I took a day just for fun," she confessed, her voice low enough that Luca, enthralled by the water, wouldn't overhear. "Thank you for encouraging this." Oliver felt a bloom of warmth in his chest. "I should be thanking you. I've never done something like this either, not without it being some big formal event." She eyed him curiously. "Your family?" She seemed to catch herself as though she realized she didn't know much about his background. "I mean, are they around?" "You don't talk about them much." He inhaled, heart thudding. The question he'd been dreading. He had to keep his story consistent. "We're not super close," he answered vaguely. It wasn't exactly untrue. He often felt distant from his parents, even though they were physically present in his life. "I kind of wanted to branch out on my own for a while, hence taking jobs like this." Emma accepted that explanation with a thoughtful nod. "That makes sense. Sometimes you have to step away to find yourself, right?" "Exactly." Relief swirled in Oliver's gut. At least she hadn't pressed further. Just then, Luca tugged on Emma's sleeve, pointing excitedly to a small turtle sunning itself on a rock near the reeds. "Mommy, look, it's a real one." He giggled, comparing it to the plush turtle in his arms. Emma and Oliver both leaned over, smiling at the tiny creature. Over the next half hour, they shared laughter at Luca's commentary and snapped a few pictures. Emma used her phone to capture a photo of Oliver and Luca side by side, both grinning ear to ear. Oliver insisted on taking one of Emma and Luca, and she obliged, though she teased him about her hair being windswept. As the boat returned to the pier, Oliver felt a pang of longing for it not to end. The morning had been almost magical in its simplicity. No one demanded to see him as an heir or grilled him about hotel expansions or trust funds. He was just Oliver, a man forging a genuine bond with a woman and her son. When they disembarked, Emma suggested they grab a quick lunch at a small riverside cafe. She had only a few hours before she needed to be home for laundry and errands, so they settled at an outdoor table under a striped umbrella. The conversation flowed easily. Luca talked about school, his favorite cartoons, and how he wanted a pet turtle someday. Emma listened with a gentle smile, occasionally trading glances with Oliver. "Oliver," Luca piped up mid-lunch, "can we come again with you next time we ride a boat?" Oliver couldn't help but laugh. "Sure thing, champ. Anytime your mom says it's okay." Emma's gaze flicked from Luca to Oliver, and something unspoken passed between them, a note of tenderness that suggested they'd slid into an almost familial dynamic, even though they had no formal ties. After finishing their sandwiches, Emma glanced at her watch. "We should go," she admitted, a trace of regret in her voice. "But this was wonderful. Thank you." They walked back along the river path, Luca skipping ahead. Oliver wanted to say so much, how he valued every moment with them, how it was more real than anything he'd experienced in lavish mansions. But a lump swelled in his throat, preventing him from finding the right words. They stopped near a bench where the path diverged. Emma would head left toward her neighborhood. Oliver would loop right toward the hotel. Luca, noticing they were about to part ways, gave Oliver an impromptu hug around the legs. "Thanks for the boat ride," he said, pressing his stuffed turtle between them. Oliver's heart turned over. He ruffled Luca's hair gently. "Any time, buddy." Emma offered Oliver a soft smile. "I'll see you at the hotel tomorrow night." She hesitated, then lightly touched his arm. "Really? Thank you." "Of course," he murmured, "and thank you for inviting me." They parted, and Oliver watched them recede down the sunny walkway, Luca swinging his plush turtle at his side. Only when they were out of sight did Oliver let out a long breath, as if he'd been holding it the entire time. Every second with Emma felt dangerously close to genuine love, love that was complicated by the secret of who he truly was. He wandered back to the hotel, uncertain how long he could sustain the facade. Yet a part of him whispered that maybe it wouldn't matter. Emma appreciated him for his kindness, his presence, his humor, not for money or status. If in the end he came clean with honesty, perhaps she would understand. But the fear lingered. Secrets had a way of crashing into the light, sometimes at the worst possible time. For now, though, Oliver let himself savor the memory of the morning boat ride, the wind on their faces, and the laughter that felt as real as the sunshine on the river. He headed inside, greeted by the familiar hum of the lobby. Tomorrow the daily grind would resume, but at least he carried a pocket full of hope, a hope that maybe love and trust could grow between two people from such different worlds, if only they were willing to meet each other halfway. Oliver spent the day after the boat ride in a distracted haze. He couldn't stop replaying images of Emma and Luca laughing in the morning light, the boy gleefully clutching his stuffed turtle as the boat skimmed the water. Those moments felt like tiny jewels of happiness, genuine, unscripted, and unclouded by his hidden identity. Yet even as he savored these new feelings, a shadow loomed, the impending visit from someone at Grayson Hotels. The potential for a surprise inspection left him uneasy, and he found himself constantly on alert. Each morning he'd anxiously scan the new arrivals. Each time a well-dressed stranger entered the lobby, Oliver fought a wave of panic. So far, no Grayson executive had appeared, but the uncertainty weighed on him. Meanwhile, Emma resumed her routine. Bank in the morning, the hotel in the evening. She seemed busier than ever, though he couldn't tell if that was good or bad. Sometimes Oliver caught her stifling yawns as they prepared the dining room or folded napkins side by side. But whenever he asked if she was all right, she'd wave him off with a reassuring smile. During a lull between lunch and dinner services one day, Oliver slipped away to the staff area, hoping for a brief break. No sooner had he sat down on a worn couch than his phone buzzed. He recognized Dylan's number immediately. With a deep breath, Oliver answered. "Hey, Dylan." His friend's voice was brisk, laced with worry. "We've got a situation. My contacts say one of your family's top guys is heading out to your location, someone named Jonathan Reed. He's known for doing thorough property inspections." Oliver squeezed his eyes shut. "When?" "In about 3 days, give or take," Dylan replied. He'll probably arrive unannounced so he can see the place in real conditions. Then he'll file a report back to your parents." Oliver swallowed hard, mind spinning. Jonathan Reed was one of his father's longtime associates, a meticulous figure who prided himself on upholding the highest standards. Oliver had crossed paths with him once or twice at lavish company events. There was no chance Reed wouldn't recognize him. And if Reed saw him working at the Riverside Hotel, "What do I do?" Oliver asked in a hushed voice. "If he spots me, it's over. He'll blow my cover in front of everyone." "You have options," Dylan said slowly. "You could leave now, duck out before he shows up. Or you could claim a family emergency and vanish for a few days. Or maybe you can come clean to your manager and convince her to keep your identity secret." Oliver flinched at each suggestion. None sounded appealing. Leaving abruptly would hurt Emma. He'd vanish without explanation. The thought made his gut twist. Telling Carla or the staff might also be disastrous. It could spark resentment or confusion, and as for simply brazening it out, that was a near impossibility if Reed walked through the door. "I need time to think," he finally said, pressing his free hand to his forehead. Dylan lowered his voice. "Just don't wait too long. 3 days could fly by. I'll try to glean more details, but you need to be prepared for Jonathan Reed to show up at any moment." They ended the call on that tense note. Oliver sat there, phone in hand, gazing around the staff break room. A once comforting space now felt suffocating, echoing with the knowledge that his ruse might collapse any day. Carla's voice rang out from the corridor, calling his name. He stood up, tucking the phone away, and forced himself to return to normal life, greeting guests, delivering coffee, managing check-ins. All the while, a clock ticked in his mind. 3 days, or maybe less. That evening, Emma arrived for her shift. She noticed Oliver's taut expression as he wiped down tables. "Are you sure you're all right?" she asked gently for what felt like the 100th time. He mustered a smile. "Just stress about this rumored Grayson inspection. Carla's said it could happen any time." Technically, that was true, though Emma had no idea just how personal that worry was. She relaxed a fraction. "Oh, right, that. Well, everyone's on edge. I overheard Carla reminding housekeeping to double-check every detail, from soap bars to pillow placement." Oliver nodded, thankful for a valid excuse to explain his tension. As they worked side by side, Emma confided that she was nearly caught up on her rent, thanks to extra shifts and a small deposit she'd managed to put aside. That piece of news buoyed Oliver's spirit, a glimmer of positivity in an otherwise troubling time. By the end of their shift, they walked toward the lobby together in the soft overhead lighting. Emma hesitated near the front desk, glancing at him with concern. "Listen," she began, "if you ever need an ear, or if you just want to vent about this big inspection, I'm around. We could grab a quick coffee sometime, outside of work." Her invitation made Oliver's heart skip. Even in her overworked state, she offered emotional support. He smiled, a wave of gratitude washing over him. "I'd love that. Let's see. Maybe tomorrow afternoon if you have a break." She glanced at her schedule on her phone. "I have a 2-hour gap between the bank and the hotel. We could meet at that little cafe across the street from the library." "Sounds perfect," Oliver agreed, feeling a small rush of anticipation. They parted ways, and Oliver trudged to his modest staff room, mind teeming with conflicting emotions. Dread about Jonathan Reed's arrival, excitement at Emma's invitation, and confusion about how to bridge the two worlds he was caught between. The following afternoon, Oliver found Emma waiting at a cozy local cafe, a small place with shelves of second-hand books and homemade pastries. She sat at a corner table by the window, sipping water and flipping through what looked like a magazine on finance tips. When she saw him, she brightened. "Hey, you made it." He slid into the chair opposite her. "I did. Busy day at the hotel, more prepping for the big inspection." "Tell me about it," she said, rolling her eyes lightly. Carla's got me wiping down every surface, including the ones guests never see. They ordered 2 coffees, a cappuccino for her, a simple black coffee for him, and sat in a hush that felt strangely comfortable. Sunlight filtered through the window, illuminating floating dust motes, and the gentle hum of the coffee machine formed a soothing backdrop. Emma leaned forward, resting her chin on one hand. "So, talk to me. What's your plan if these Grayson folks show up and decide something's wrong?" Oliver offered a half-smile, grateful she couldn't guess the real reason for his anxiety. "Carla's got 100 backup strategies," he said vaguely. "I guess we'll just do our best. Worst case, they might complain about minor things." "Yeah," she agreed, taking a careful sip of her cappuccino. "Well, it'll be fine, I'm sure." He studied her face, noticing the faint lines of tiredness near her eyes, though her gaze was warm. The thought of leaving abruptly, vanishing because Jonathan Reed would see him, stabbed at his heart. He wanted more days like the boat ride, more coffees in quiet corners, more time to uncover the gentle resilience that drew him to her. "You look tired," he observed softly. "Are you getting any breaks?" She laughed quietly, shrugging. "Sleep is overrated, right? Between Luca's school projects, the bank, and the hotel, it's a lot, but I'll manage." He reached across the table, lightly covering her free hand with his. She tensed in surprise, then relaxed. It was the first time he'd touched her in an almost intimate way, a simple gesture of concern, yet it felt electric. "You don't have to manage alone," he said gently. "I'm here, you know." Emma's cheeks flushed, and she gave a small nod. "I know, and it means a lot. But sometimes I've been on my own so long, I forget how to lean on someone else." Oliver's chest tightened. He thought about how rarely he'd found real connection in his wealthy, pretense-driven life. "Same here," he murmured. "It's new for me, too." They lingered over their coffees, the conversation floating between playful banter about fussy hotel guests and more personal notes about Emma's life before she moved to this town. She hinted at a complicated past with Luca's father, someone who drifted away and never truly stepped up. He could sense her pain in the brief mention, so he didn't push. The time flew, and soon Emma checked the clock with a sigh. "I have to run to pick up Luca from a friend's house, then drop him off at the neighbor's before my shift." Oliver nodded, though he wanted to freeze the moment, keep them in this warm cafe bubble. He stood to walk her out, the door chiming as they stepped onto the sidewalk. A cool breeze skimmed the air. Emma turned to him, expression hesitant. "Thanks for the coffee. It was nice to just talk." He offered a gentle smile. "I agree. Let's do it again sometime. No stress, no rush." She looked relieved, then impulsively leaned in to press a light kiss on his cheek. It was quick, almost uncertain, but it sent warmth coursing through Oliver's entire body. Before he could respond, Emma stepped back, her own cheeks pink. "See you tonight," she said, and with that, she hurried off. Oliver stood there, fingertips brushing the spot where her lips had been. A slow grin overtook him. Despite the knots of worry about Jonathan Reed, he allowed himself a moment of pure happiness. That night, Oliver showed up for the dinner shift, determined to keep his spirits high. The sweet memory of Emma's cheek kiss lingered, fueling him. He greeted the first wave of diners with genuine warmth, took orders with a smile, and even cracked a few jokes with the cooks. Just as he started thinking the day might be stress-free, Carla beckoned him over with an urgent gesture. She held her phone, eyes wide. "Oliver, just got an email from Grayson headquarters. That representative, Jonathan Reed, is scheduled to arrive tomorrow morning." His heart slammed in his chest. "Tomorrow?" She nodded, flustered. "Yes. There's an 8 a.m. booking in the system under his name. He's staying 2 nights to conduct a full evaluation. I need everyone at their best." Oliver swallowed, mind racing. "Of course. I'll help however I can. He's probably just going to check cleanliness, staff courtesy, Stuff like that, right? Carla gave him a tight smile. Yes, precisely, but I'm still nervous. Oliver attempted reassurance. Don't worry, we've all worked hard. We'll be fine. He forced a confidence he didn't feel. As Carla left to rally housekeeping, Oliver gripped the edge of the reception counter. The moment he'd dreaded had arrived. Jonathan Reed was due in less than 24 hours. There'd be no way to hide in the shadows for 2 whole days. He'd be expected to perform tasks, serve guests. The chance of crossing paths with Reed was almost guaranteed. Emma, carrying a tray of drinks, paused beside him, noticing his pale face. Something wrong? She whispered. He mustered a shaky smile. The Grayson inspector is coming tomorrow, he said. We'll have to stay on our toes. She nodded sympathetically, setting the tray down. Hey, it's okay. We're ready. Everything's spotless and you're amazing with guests. Don't stress. Oliver managed a nod, but his mind roiled with possible escape plans. He couldn't just vanish. Emma would be confused, maybe hurt. But if he stayed, Jonathan Reed would recognize him instantly. He spent the rest of the evening going through the motions, grateful for the chaotic demands of dinner service that kept him busy. At one point, he absent-mindedly wrote the wrong order on a ticket. Emma gently tapped his shoulder, corrected him, and shot him a concerned look. By the time they closed, he was exhausted from worry, head throbbing. Emma offered to walk out together, but he claimed extra cleanup duties. He needed space to think. She studied his expression, suspecting something deeper, but said nothing, only touching his arm in a silent show of solidarity before leaving. After midnight, Oliver lay on his bed in the staff dorm, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling. The quiet of the building pressed in on him. Jonathan Reed's arrival was hours away. Each tick of the clock hammered the point home. He couldn't keep this ruse intact. Memories of Emma's laugh, her selflessness, and Luca's trusting eyes flooded him. He'd found something genuine, a closeness that made him feel more alive than ever. Would it all be ripped away by tomorrow's inspection? His phone glowed as he typed a frantic message to Dylan. Reed arrives in the morning. I'm out of time. Should I just come clean to Emma and Carla right now? Or vanish? Several minutes passed before Dylan replied, Vanishing might break trust. Coming clean is a risk, but it might be better than disappearing without a word. Or you can hide for 2 days, but that's not realistic. Decide soon. Oliver clenched his jaw. He didn't want to run away. That would betray the bond he was building with Emma, and he refused to treat her like another disposable secret. But telling the truth carried enormous risks. She might feel betrayed or lied to, question everything he'd ever said. The staff might resent him for concealing his ownership, yet something told him Emma deserved honesty. If there was any hope for their growing relationship, she needed to know the man behind the uniform. He drifted into a restless doze, uncertain but leaning toward the inevitable. He had to face the truth, no matter how messy. Morning light crept through the curtains far too soon. Oliver jerked awake, heart pounding. Today was the day. Jonathan Reed would arrive within hours. Still in last night's clothes, Oliver rose, splashed water on his face, and exhaled shakily. He'd have to make a choice, immediately. The weight of it pressed on him like a physical burden. Could he gather the courage to talk to Emma first? Or should he confront Jonathan Reed privately to control the damage? One thing was certain. The carefully built disguise was on the brink of collapsing, and the fate of his relationship with Emma might hinge on how he handled the next few hours. Dawn arrived with a grayish sky. Clouds gathered low as if they too sensed the impending confrontation. Oliver paced his small room, every nerve on edge. According to Carla's information, Jonathan Reed's reservation was for 8 a.m., and it was already past 7. If Oliver planned to speak with Emma before Reed showed up, he had to do it now, or it would be too late. He snatched his phone, searching for Emma's number. If she was awake, maybe he could ask her to meet briefly outside the hotel, away from staff ears. His heart pounded as it rang once, twice. A sleepy voice answered. "Hello?" "It's Oliver," he said softly, leaning against the wall. "Sorry to call so early. Are you—" "Oliver?" She sounded surprised but not annoyed. "Is something wrong?" He inhaled. "I need to talk to you. It's important. Could we meet at the coffee shop on Pine Street in, say, 15 minutes? There was a short silence on her end, then a note of worry. 15 minutes? I'm supposed to be at the bank soon, but maybe I can leave a bit earlier. Is everything okay? He wavered, the words piling up on his tongue. I'm not sure. I'll explain when I see you, please. She agreed, still sounding puzzled, and they hung up. Oliver hurriedly changed out of his rumpled clothes into a clean shirt and slacks, something that looked neat but still like an ordinary staff uniform. He didn't dare wear anything that might betray his wealth. Then he slipped out of the hotel, careful to avoid Carla or any early bird colleagues who might delay him with tasks. The coffee shop was just opening, the smell of fresh beans wafting into the chilly morning air. Oliver waited by the entrance, arms crossed tight against his chest, mind swirling with possible ways to reveal his identity. Each scenario ended badly in his imagination. Emma might feel betrayed, or she might walk out with tears in her eyes. He had no illusions that this would go smoothly. Minutes later, Emma arrived, her hair still damp from a quick shower, a light jacket pulled over her shoulders. She approached him with concern, all over her face. "Oliver, you're making me nervous. What's going on?" He gestured toward a small table outside the cafe, though the air was brisk. "I'd rather talk here than inside, less chance of being overheard. Are you too cold?" She shook her head, taking a seat. "No, this is fine. Talk to me." Oliver tried to breathe. The weight of the secret pressed down like a physical force. "Emma, I haven't been fully honest with you about who I am. I came to this hotel under a false identity." He paused, watching her expression shift from puzzled to alarmed. She blinked. "False identity? Oliver, what are you talking about?" He glanced around to ensure no one lurked nearby. "My real name is Oliver Grayson. My family owns Grayson Hotels, including the one you and I work at." He heard his voice falter. "I've been posing as a regular staff member because I wanted to escape my old life for a while, to see if I could find genuine connections without my family's status overshadowing everything." Emma stared, her eyes widening. She opened her mouth, closed it again, then finally managed, "You're telling me you're the owner of that entire chain?" Her voice trembled, not with excitement but with shock and maybe a flicker of hurt. "Why didn't you say something?" He swallowed. "Because I've grown up around people who only wanted me for money or business or networking. I needed a break. I wanted to meet honest people, be treated as normal. He broke off, the words choking in his throat. "And then I met you, and you were so real, Emma. Your life, your struggles, the way you cared for Luca. I didn't want to lose that authenticity." She sat rigid, arms crossed defensively. "So all these weeks you've been lying? Letting me think you were just another co-worker trying to make ends meet?" Oliver ran a trembling hand through his hair. "I know it sounds awful, and maybe it is, but I never meant to deceive you for fun. I truly wanted to connect without the baggage of my name." Emma's face reflected a storm of emotions: hurt, confusion, betrayal. "What else have you lied about?" He opened his hands helplessly. "Nothing else. Everything I said about enjoying your company, wanting to help you, that was real. The job tasks, the boat ride, the fare, all those moments were genuine to me." He forced himself to hold her gaze. "But Jonathan Reed, a top associate of my family, is coming to the hotel this morning. He'll recognize me. I was scared you'd find out in the worst possible way." She stood abruptly, taking a shaky step back from the table. "And you waited until now to tell me? Right when your cover's about to be blown?" He rose too, reaching out but not quite touching her. "I'm sorry. I was a coward. I kept putting it off because I wanted more time with you. Time where you wouldn't see me as the rich hotel heir, but just as Oliver. He hesitated. But yes, now Reed's on his way. If he sees me, everything's out in the open. I didn't want you blindsided. Emma looked away, tears threatening to form. I don't know how to process this. I confided in you, counted on your help, introduced you to Luca. She closed her eyes, releasing a trembling breath. I feel stupid. He gently shook his head. No, you're not stupid. I'm the one who messed up. She swallowed hard, blinking rapidly to keep tears at bay. I need to go. I have to get to the bank, and I can't deal with this right now. Emma, please, Oliver implored. Can we talk again soon? Let me explain more, or at least give you time to ask questions. I care about you and Luca more than anything. A flash of pain crossed her face. You should have thought about that before lying to me for weeks. Her voice cracked. I need space. Before he could respond, she turned and walked away, her steps brisk, arms folded as though hugging herself for comfort. Oliver watched her vanish around the corner, feeling hollow and helpless. He could almost taste the anguish in the air, the bitterness of betrayal, and he knew there was no quick fix for the damage done. He arrived at the Riverside Boutique Hotel minutes before 8 a.m., stepping into the lobby with a heaviness in his chest. Carla spotted him at once, hurrying over in a fluster. Oliver, there you are. Mr. Jonathan Reed just arrived. He's in the lounge having coffee. Oliver forced a calm facade. All right, I'll, see if he needs anything. Carla leaned in, whispering urgently. He has a reputation for being thorough. We have to make sure everything is perfect. Could you escort him around if he wants a tour? She gave him a desperate look. You're good with people, and he's from Grayson. Maybe you can handle him best. He gave a tight nod, ironically aware that yes, he indeed knew Jonathan Reed, just not in the way Carla imagined. Of course, I'll take care of him. He left her side and took a steadying breath, then stepped into the small lounge area. Reed sat near a window, dressed in a tailored suit, sipping black coffee. He was in his early 50s, hair thinning, posture stiff with confidence. Oliver recognized him instantly, the memory of formal dinners where Reed stood by Oliver's father, discussing expansions or acquisitions. Reed glanced up, eyes narrowing. For a split second, he looked uncertain, as if his mind was trying to place Oliver's face. Then recognition dawned, and a jolt passed across his features. He set down his cup, leaning forward. Oliver Grayson? Oliver placed a polite smile on his face, though his heart hammered. Hello, Mr. Reed. Good morning? Reed stood, scanning the surroundings. What are you doing here, dressed like staff? His voice was hushed but tense. Does your father know you're out in the field like this? Oliver gestured for Reed to keep his voice down. Let's talk in private, please. Without waiting, he led Reed to a small vacant office in the back, a room Carla sometimes used for storage of marketing materials. Inside, he shut the door. Reed faced him with an incredulous stare. This is beyond unusual. Care to explain? Oliver's mouth felt dry. He tried to keep his voice steady. I've been working here under a different name. I needed to see how things operated without everyone fawning or panicking over who I am. That's highly irregular, Reed murmured. Not to mention deceptive. Your father never mentioned anything about you doing an undercover stint. Oliver shrugged, fighting the resentment that always brewed when people mentioned his father. He didn't know. It's my personal choice. Then, pressing on, he added, Look, I understand this is unexpected, but I ask for your discretion, at least for the next day or two. I'll handle explaining myself to the staff. Reed gave a humorless chuckle. You want me to lie to them? Why on earth? You've known me since I was a kid, Oliver said, desperation creeping in. This is important to me. Please let me finish out this inspection with you as if I were just staff. We can talk privately about any issues you see, then I'll decide how to proceed. It won't reflect badly on the hotel. If anything, it's running well. Reed pinched the bridge of his nose, clearly torn. "This is highly unorthodox. If your father finds out, I'll deal with him. Just do the inspection. Make your notes. Treat me like you would any other employee for now." Oliver swallowed. "That's all I ask." Reed pursed his lips, the gears in his mind evidently turning. After a tense pause, he nodded once. "Fine. But if the staff or your father specifically asks, I won't lie." He pointed a finger at Oliver. "You must come clean yourself." Oliver exhaled, relief and anxiety coiling together. "Agreed. Thank you." Shaking his head, Reed stepped to the door. "Let's get this over with. Show me around." And so began the strangest tour of Oliver's life. He guided Jonathan Reed through each floor, pointing out facilities, explaining daily operations, details Oliver truly knew well after weeks of hands-on work. Carla joined them for part of it, beaming with pride, oblivious to the tension crackling between Oliver and Reed. "Your staff is polite," Reed commented at one point when a housekeeper in the hallway gave him a warm greeting. "Rooms seem tidy. I'll want to sample the restaurant tonight, observe the dinner service." Oliver nodded, glancing around, hyper-aware that at any moment Emma could appear. He hadn't seen her since their disastrous conversation that morning. She wasn't scheduled for day shifts, but what if she came by early? The thought filled him with dread. Thankfully, the morning passed without Emma's appearance. Reed finished his initial walkthrough, jotted notes on a tablet, and retreated to his suite, one of the hotel's nicest rooms, to do more paperwork. Carla breathed a sigh of relief, praising Oliver for handling the visitor so smoothly. "He seems impressed," she gushed. "Hopefully, we'll pass with flying colors." Oliver forced a smile. "I hope so." Inside, he felt like a tightly wound spring. One crisis might be temporarily averted. Reed had agreed to keep quiet, but Emma was still upset, and Oliver couldn't blame her. That afternoon, he slipped away to call Emma again, leaving a voicemail when she didn't pick up. "Hey, it's me. I know you're hurt. I'm sorry for ambushing you this morning. If you can, please come by the hotel or call me back. I'd like to talk more, to answer anything. I just need you to know how much you matter to me." He hung up, feeling hollow, and stared at the phone. No reply came. Evening approached, and Reed emerged from his room, ready to observe dinner service in the restaurant. Oliver, dread pooling in his stomach, changed into his waiting staff uniform. He prayed Emma wouldn't be on shift tonight, for both his sake and hers. But that prayer went unanswered. Just as the hostess station opened for dinner, Emma arrived in her apron, stepping into the dining room. Their eyes locked from across the space, Oliver nearly freezing in place. She looked away immediately, her face a picture of guarded resolve. Jonathan Reed, seated at a corner table, noticed the momentary tension. He gave Oliver a questioning glance that said, "Is this staff or something else?" Oliver tore his gaze from Emma, focusing on Reed's table. With a deep inhale, he approached. "Good evening, sir," he said, adopting the polite server tone. "May I start you off with a drink?" "Water's fine," Reed replied coolly. Then, more quietly, "Maintain your composure. I'm watching." Oliver nodded, throat tight, and dashed off to fetch water, grateful for the excuse to step away. His pulse thundered in his ears. Emma was flitting about, guiding customers to tables, but she moved like a ghost around him, offering no sign of acknowledgement. The ache in his chest worsened. He delivered water to Reed, took the man's dinner order, and tried to manage other tables. Every time Oliver caught sight of Emma, he sensed the air crackling with unresolved conflict. But they couldn't have it out here, in front of guests and colleagues, especially not with Reed analyzing every detail. Midway through dinner, Carla asked Emma to bring bread to Reed's table while Oliver served another group. Emma hesitated, but complied. Oliver, glimpsing out of the corner of his eye, saw Reed give her a polite nod, then a curious once-over. Emma placed the bread basket with professional care, never looking at Oliver, and hurried away. After an interminable hour, Reed finished his meal and quietly signaled Oliver. "I've seen enough for tonight," he said, paying the bill with a crisp note. "We can review my findings tomorrow morning." Oliver mustered a courteous response. "Thank you, sir. Have a good evening." Reed left, and the tension in Oliver's shoulders momentarily eased. But the real turmoil remained. Emma. As the restaurant emptied and closing time neared, Oliver finally summoned the courage to approach her. She was wiping a table, posture rigid. "Emma," he whispered, "can we please talk, even just a minute outside?" She set down the cloth and turned to him, eyes reflecting hurt and anger. "You want to talk now, while you're still pretending to be a server in your own hotel?" He grimaced. "I'm not pretending anymore, not with you. I told you the truth, Emma. Please, give me a chance to explain everything fully." She hesitated, glancing around the quiet dining room. Only a couple staff lingered, finishing cleanup. "Fine," she said, voice taut. "Meet me out back by the loading area in 10 minutes. Oliver exhaled relief. "Thank you." She walked off without another word. That small window of hope was all Oliver had. He completed his final tasks at breakneck speed, ignoring Carla's questions about why he seemed so jumpy. Then he slipped out the back door. Under the dim glow of a single lamp, stacks of empty crates loomed in the shadows. Emma was there, arms folded, wearing her own expression of turmoil. He approached cautiously, hands trembling with a need to make things right. "Thanks for agreeing to this," he began, voice hushed. "Emma, I never meant to use you or toy with your feelings. I came here to break away from a life that never felt real to me. I wanted to see if I could exist without my family name overshadowing me. Then I met you." She pressed her lips tight. "You told me 100 little things about your life, never once mentioning the biggest truth. Don't you see how that hurts?" He nodded, his gut twisting at her pained tone. "I do. And I'm sorry. It's not because I didn't trust you, The second I mention Grayson, people treat me differently. Even you might have. But now I realize I should have told you sooner, especially once we got close." Emma stared at the ground for a moment, tears glinting in her eyes. "You know, I told you about my landlord issues, my shifts, my son's struggles, and all along, you had the means to fix it in a snap. It makes me feel small and stupid, like I've been bearing my soul to someone who was only half present." Oliver's voice cracked. "I never saw you as small or stupid. I admired your strength, your integrity, everything. Yes, I have money, but that doesn't mean I wanted to flaunt it. I wanted a real bond, not driven by finances." She wiped the corner of her eye. "So what now? You walk out of here with your fancy associate, turn the place upside down and vanish back into your privileged world?" "No!" he burst out. "I don't want that. I want to stay, or at least finish what I started. Maybe come clean to Carla, the staff, and to keep seeing you, if you'll have me. Because His breath quivered. "I'm falling for you, Emma. That's not a lie. It's the most honest thing I've ever said." She looked up, meeting his eyes with a mixture of longing and pain. In that silence, the distant hum of traffic and a soft breeze through the crates felt deafening. Then she closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. "I don't know if I can trust you right now," she admitted. "This is a lot to process." His heart clenched. "I understand," he murmured. "Take the time you need. I'm here. I won't vanish if you don't want me to. But if you need me to back off, I will." Her gaze flicked away, tears threatening again. She shook her head. "I can't do this tonight." She moved past him, voice shaky. "I need to think." He stood rooted in place, watching her disappear into the shadows of the loading area. The single lamppost cast a lonely circle of light, leaving him alone with the weight of his confession. He didn't know if Emma would ever forgive him or believe in his sincerity. But at least the truth was out, for better or worse. Upstairs, Jonathan Reed was probably reviewing notes to report to the Grayson family. Inside, Carla might be meticulously polishing silverware to please the big inspector. And somewhere in the quiet streets, Emma was hurting, questioning everything they'd shared. Oliver slumped against a crate, shoulders sagging. He had done what he vowed to do. He'd told Emma the truth. Now came the hardest part, waiting to see if it was enough to salvage the fragile love he had desperately hoped was real. Nights in the Riverside Boutique Hotel were rarely silent. Even after guests retired, there was always a low hum, maybe the boiler groaning or someone moving trays in the kitchen. But to Oliver, that night felt emptier than any other. He'd never felt so alone, not even in the echoing halls of his parents' mansion. Even with Jonathan Reed's presence looming over the hotel, it was Emma's hurt expression that replayed in his mind over and over. Morning arrived with silver sunlight creeping through the thin curtains of his staff room. Oliver rose stiffly, hardly rested. He splashed water on his face, then stared at his own reflection in the small mirror above the sink. This was supposed to be a chance to find himself beyond the Grayson name, to discover real human connections. Yet all he'd managed was heartbreak and a looming family scandal. Pulling on a neat uniform, he headed to the lobby. A quick glance around told him Carla wasn't there yet, but Jonathan Reed was. He spotted him in conversation with a housekeeping supervisor near the reception desk. Reed caught Oliver's eye, gave a curt nod, then continued talking. Oliver paused, uncertain whether to approach or slip away. Ultimately, he decided to continue on his usual tasks. Reed had said they would speak again that morning, and Oliver felt only dread at the prospect. He ducked into the dining room. Breakfast service was in full swing, guests picking from a modest buffet of scrambled eggs, fresh fruits, and toast. The staff bustled with polite energy. Oliver grabbed a tray of coffee carafes and circled the room, refilling cups with a polite smile. A sharp pang hit him every time he thought of Emma. Would she appear at the door, her expression still shadowed by last night's revelations? Maybe she had chosen not to come in at all. Oliver tried to brace himself for that possibility. Emma could easily request time off or claim an emergency. After all, she had no reason to face him if she still felt betrayed. Yet around mid-morning, she showed up. Oliver caught sight of her entering the lobby from the corridor leading to staff lockers. She wore her typical uniform, black slacks, a tidy blouse, hair pinned back. But there was a guarded distance in her eyes. Their gazes met for a fraction of a second. She offered a polite nod, nothing more, before stepping into the dining area to greet a table that had just arrived. Oliver felt relief that she hadn't run away, but the tension in her posture warned him not to push. Trying to keep his composure, Oliver checked on the last breakfast guests. Carla emerged from the office, beckoning him. He set his tray aside and walked over, nerves prickling. "Oliver," she said quietly, "Mr. Reed wants a quick meeting with you in my office. I'll give you two some space. Everything okay?" He forced a short nod. "Yes, I'll handle it." Carla looked slightly puzzled, but didn't press further. She guided him to the small office, a room with pale walls, a desk strewn with schedules, and a single window overlooking the staff parking area. Jonathan Reed stood inside, scanning a couple of folders. He glanced up the moment Oliver entered, and Carla discreetly backed out, shutting the door behind her. "Good morning," Reed said, setting the folders on the desk. "I've completed my preliminary notes on this property." Oliver tried to calm his fluttering stomach. "I see. How do we look?" Reed's brows furrowed. "Frankly, the hotel itself is in decent shape. The staff is polite. The premises mostly well-maintained. Some small improvements could be made, modernizing certain rooms, polishing marketing strategies. Overall, it's a solid operation." "That's good to hear," Oliver murmured. "However," Reed continued, his gaze piercing, I have to reconcile my findings with the fact that the owner's son, under a false name, is working incognito as a waiter. The question is how your father will react to this. And to be blunt, how the employees will react once they realize you're one of the owners." Oliver pressed his lips. "I know. I plan to speak with Carla soon, let her know who I am. I might do it privately or with a small group of senior staff if you think that's wise." Reed considered. "It's your call, but I don't suggest a big reveal in front of everyone. It could cause confusion or worse, hurt morale. Many might feel tricked." He paused, eyeing Oliver. "Why did you do this truly?" Oliver exhaled. This question he'd answered for Emma, but it felt different explaining it to a man who'd known him since childhood. "I was stifled in the corporate bubble, tired of being the heir. I wanted to learn the business from the ground up, see what it's like to really work in one of our properties and experience normal life." Reed's expression softened slightly. "In some ways, I respect that. Your father might not, but I won't stand in your way. I'll finish my formal inspection today and tomorrow, then I'll file a positive report. After that, you handle whatever fallout arises. Are we clear?" Oliver nodded, relief mixing with dread. "Yes, thank you." Reed didn't smile, but Oliver sensed a hint of grudging admiration in his tone. "You've got a good head for operations, Oliver. Perhaps this will all blow over once your father sees the positive side. Just be careful with your staff's feelings. Deception can fracture trust." The words hit too close to home. Oliver dipped his head. "I understand." The meeting ended, and Reed left the office, presumably to continue his evaluations. Oliver sagged against the desk, heart racing. So far, the professional side of this fiasco was manageable, but the personal side? That was another story. Stepping into the hallway, Oliver nearly collided with Emma, who was returning from the kitchen carrying a small tray. They froze, inches apart. She inhaled sharply, obviously startled. "Sorry," he muttered, glancing at the tray. "Need help?" She shook her head, adjusting her grip. "I've got it." He swallowed. "Emma, if you have a moment—" Her cheeks tightened, eyes flicking to the office door. "Not now. I'm in the middle of service." "I know," he said softly. "But let me know when you're done, okay? I'll be around." She nodded stiffly, then brushed past him, heading to the dining room. Oliver watched her go, pain lancing his chest. How quickly their gentle camaraderie had turned into a wall of distance. He reminded himself that he deserved it. The hours churned onward. Reed spoke with housekeeping, front desk, even poked around the kitchen area, all while Oliver tried to maintain normalcy. Occasionally, he glimpsed Emma gracefully seating guests, explaining specials, or refreshing water glasses. She did her job flawlessly, but with him, she kept her words to the bare minimum. Carla, oblivious to the emotional undercurrents, seemed proud of how well the staff was performing under Reed's scrutiny. Around midday, she assigned Oliver and Emma to reorganize a small storage room in the basement, similar to the chore that once helped them bond. He guessed Carla thought they made a good team. Instead, it felt like a punishment. They descended the stone steps in tense silence. The old storeroom bathed in dim, fluorescent light. Dust motes danced in the stale air. There were boxes labeled with old event decorations, tablecloths, and a random cluster of cleaning supplies. Emma set down a crate with a soft thud, then crossed her arms. "Let's get this over with." Oliver nodded, heart aching at her distant tone. He rummaged in a closet for a broom, trying to focus on tasks. They worked in near silence, rearranging boxes, tossing out broken or useless items. Each time Oliver tried to start a conversation, Emma answered politely but tersely. At one point, he found a battered sign reading, "Welcome to Riverside Family Fun Day," with cartoon balloons painted on it, likely leftover from some event years ago. He turned to Emma, attempting a gentle tone. "Hey, Remember the fair you took me to? Luca winning that ring toss game? That was probably more fun than whatever event this sign came from. Emma's hands paused on a stack of linens, her expression flickering with nostalgia. But she quickly clamped down on the emotion. Yeah, I do remember. She cleared her throat. We had a good time. A delicate silence hovered. Oliver braced himself. I'm sorry. I ruined all that, didn't I? She exhaled, setting the linens aside. You didn't ruin the memories. Those moments were real, at least for me. But now, I can't help thinking, was I just your experiment? Her voice trembled on the last word. He stepped closer, a hand hovering near her arm. No, never. Emma, it was real for me too. The feelings, the happiness, that wasn't fake. The lie was only about my family name. Everything else was the most genuine I've ever experienced. She studied him with weary eyes. I want to believe you, Oliver, but how can I just wipe away the deception? He swallowed, chest tight. You can't. I have to earn back your trust, if you'll allow me the chance. Whatever that takes, I'll do it. She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers gripped the edge of a box, knuckles white. Finally, she said, Right now I don't know how to respond. Part of me is furious and feels humiliated. Another part misses what we had. And Luca, he keeps asking when you'll come around again. She shut her eyes briefly, as though fending off tears. Oliver's throat constricted. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I never wanted to hurt either of you. Luca's a wonderful kid. You're an amazing mother. I admire that more than you can imagine. Emma drew in a ragged breath, blinking away moisture in her eyes. I need time, she repeated, her voice quieter now, less angry, more exhausted. I can't just pretend everything's fine, but I won't sabotage your work here either. We can be civil co-workers. He recognized it as the only olive branch she could offer at the moment. I understand, he murmured, stepping back to give her space. Thank you. They continued sorting items, the air still taut with unspoken tension, but no longer quite as icy. Oliver clung to the sliver of hope in her words. She wasn't shutting him out completely. She just needed time to heal from the shock. An hour later, Carla popped her head into the storeroom, praising their progress and updating them on the lunch shift's status. Emma seized the chance to head upstairs, quickly excusing herself. Oliver watched her go, mind weighed down by regret and longing. Near the lobby, Jonathan Reed had stationed himself at a small writing desk, flipping through more documents. Oliver approached, clearing his throat. Mr. Reed, do you need anything else from me? Reed glanced up. Not for the moment. I've concluded most of my formal notes. Tomorrow, I'll finalize everything. Then I'll be on my way. Oliver nodded. I appreciate that. He hesitated, then added, When you speak to my father, please, keep it factual about the hotel. I'll handle the personal side. Reed pursed his lips. Your father won't like being kept in the dark, but that's between you and him. I'll just deliver my professional assessment. The rest is your business. A faint wave of gratitude rolled through Oliver. Thank you. Reed stood, gathering his papers. For what it's worth, the staff thinks highly of you. I've heard a few mention how you pitch in wherever you can. That might help soften the blow when they learn who you really are. Oliver managed a thin smile. I hope so. But inside, he knew it wasn't the staff's reaction he feared most. It was Emma's. By late afternoon, the hotel slowed to its usual lull before dinner. Carla asked Oliver to check some inventory records in the back office. He used the solitude to phone Dylan again, stepping into a small corridor for privacy. Any news from your end? Oliver asked, voice hushed. Dylan sighed. Your father's not suspicious yet, but if Reed sends a formal report referencing you, that could change. If you want to manage the fallout, be ready, maybe even contact your father yourself with an explanation. Oliver closed his eyes. I'm not sure I'm ready for that confrontation, but I'll consider it. And how's Emma? Dylan ventured gently. You tell her? Oliver swallowed. Yes, She's hurt. We're in a rough spot. I just hope she doesn't hate me forever." Silence hummed on the line. Finally, Dylan said, "I wish I had better advice. This was always a risk. But maybe honesty going forward will help heal things." "Yeah," Oliver mumbled. "Thanks." He ended the call, feeling the crushing weight of all these revelations. He spent the next few hours helping set up for dinner. Emma was scheduled to work the evening shift, so they inevitably crossed paths multiple times, exchanging quick, minimal words about table numbers or which guests needed refills. Each time he noted the flicker of sadness in her eyes, the tension in her jaw. Around 7 p.m., a noisy family arrived, requiring extra high chairs and rearranged seating. Oliver and Emma tackled the task together out of necessity, working efficiently. For a fleeting second, it reminded him of the synergy they used to share. Wordless coordination, a certain harmony. Yet once the table was settled, Emma retreated behind the hostess stand, avoiding further conversation. Oliver's heart clenched. He tried to stay positive, recalling her comment that she just needed time. Jonathan Reed dined quietly again, observing the staff interactions. He took notes on a small notepad, occasionally glancing Oliver's way with a cryptic look. Oliver served him politely, forcibly ignoring the swirl of emotions from all sides. By closing time, Oliver's head ached. He'd barely eaten. All he wanted was to talk to Emma in private again, but she left promptly after her shift, citing exhaustion. The mild good night she gave him felt like 100 miles away from the gentle kisses or playful smiles of just days ago. He spent an hour wandering the empty dining room, tidying chairs and cutlery. Carla eventually approached him, eyebrows raised. "You've done more than enough, Oliver. Go rest." He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Sure, I'll call it a night." Heading to his staff quarters, Oliver paused in the dim corridor, catching a glimpse of the front desk clock. Nearly midnight. Jonathan Reed would finalize his inspection tomorrow and depart soon after. By then, Oliver would have to decide whether to reveal his identity to Carla and the staff. And in the bigger picture, he'd have to figure out what to do about his father. Worst of all, Emma might never trust him again. She could choose to keep things strictly professional or eventually leave the hotel altogether, especially if working under the air of Grayson Hotels felt like a betrayal. Slipping into his modest room, Oliver flicked on the lamp. The quiet was almost suffocating. His phone lay dark on the nightstand, no messages from Emma. He sank onto the bed, elbows on his knees, face buried in his hands. He'd found something so precious in Emma's presence, a genuine connection, a sense of being seen for who he was, and he might have destroyed it. For a moment, he let himself picture an alternate reality, one where he'd told Emma from the start. Perhaps she would have been wary at first, but maybe they could have built trust. She wouldn't feel duped or small. Then he imagined a future. Emma, Luca, and him, going on more boat rides, celebrating birthdays, living a life free of pretense. A hollow ache echoed in his chest. It was too late for that perfect scenario. Now all he could do was salvage what remained, if Emma allowed it. He lay back, closing his eyes, the lamp's dim glow painting shadows on the ceiling. Jonathan Reed's near-finished inspection, his father's likely reaction, Carla's confusion, the staff's shock, and Emma's heartbreak. It was all one massive storm, swirling just beyond tomorrow's horizon, and Oliver, for all his wealth and status, felt powerless to stop it. Sunlight cast a soft glow through the lobby windows, marking the start of Jonathan Reed's last full day of inspection. Oliver rose early, nerves aflutter. He couldn't tell whether the ache in his gut came more from Reed's presence or from Emma's palpable distance. Probably both. He forced himself into his staff uniform and headed downstairs. At the front desk, Carla was updating reservation logs. She greeted him with a cheery, "Morning," but then paused, noticing his tense posture. "You okay, Oliver?" You seem preoccupied lately." He managed a wan smile. "Just a lot on my mind. How's Mr. Reed today?" Carla shrugged, flipping a page in her binder. "He left early, said he's checking something in town related to the hotel's marketing. He'll be back soon, though. Wants to wrap up by tomorrow afternoon." Oliver nodded, relieved Reed wasn't here, at least for the moment. "Got it. Let me know if there's anything specific I should do to help." Carla tilted her head. "Actually, I could use some help in the dining room. The morning rush was busier than usual, and we're short-staffed." Her gaze flicked toward the hallway. "Emma's down there, but she's juggling a lot." Oliver swallowed the knot in his throat at the mention of Emma. "Sure, I'm on it." He walked toward the dining area, bracing himself. It was breakfast time, so Emma likely wore the discreet half-smile she reserved for guests in the morning. He found her near the kitchen door, quickly wiping down a tray. She glanced up as he approached, expression guarded. "Carla said you needed help?" he offered, tone gentle. She nodded. "We're backed up. Table 5 needs refills, Table 7 wants extra cutlery, and I'm supposed to seat a new group in a minute." Her voice was brisk, businesslike. "Thanks for coming." He grabbed a pitcher of coffee and headed to Table 5, conscious of Emma's eyes on him, or more likely, consciously avoiding him. The dining room bustled. Families with children, a couple of business types scrolling through phones, and 2 retired couples chatting over pastries. Oliver forced a friendly smile, topping off mugs and offering quick conversation. Despite Emma's frosty demeanor, they managed the surge fairly smoothly. He caught her eye a few times, and she would meet his gaze for a split second before looking away. He couldn't blame her. Yet each moment of closeness, handing over sugar packets at the same time, brushing past in a narrow aisle, made his heart twist. Their unspoken tension felt heavier than a room full of guests. Half an hour later, the dining room cleared out. Emma placed her tray on the service station with a tired sigh. Oliver approached, clearing his throat. "Thanks for letting me help. Hopefully that eased your load." She nodded, not meeting his eyes. "It did. I'll take a short break now before lunch prep starts." He hesitated, then ventured, "Could we talk? Maybe for a minute?" She frowned slightly but relented. "Okay, let's step outside." They moved to a small side patio where staff sometimes took breaks, a modest area with a bench and a couple of potted plants. The morning sun was mild. Emma crossed her arms, leaning against the low wall. "What is it, Oliver?" He searched her face, struggling to form the right words. I want to know how you're feeling. If there's anything I can do to make this less painful." She let out a slow breath. "I'm torn. Part of me understands why you hid your identity. You were tired of people seeing you as a big wallet. But another part feels like I was left in the dark even when we were growing so close." He nodded, guilt throbbing. "That's understandable. I wish I'd told you sooner." A pause. "I need to decide how to handle this with the rest of the staff, Carla especially. And Jonathan Reed is almost done, which means this secret won't stay quiet long. I don't want you to be blindsided again." Emma's gaze flicked to the door, ensuring no one overheard. "So you plan to reveal yourself as the owner's son? How will Carla react?" A wry smile tugged at his lips. "I imagine she'll be shocked, maybe furious. But once I explain my motives, I hope she'll forgive me. I've tried to do good work here, show genuine respect for everyone. It's not like I treated them poorly." Emma's posture softened a little. "You've been helpful, I can't deny that. But some might still feel deceived." He swallowed. "I know, and I'll face that. The bigger question is, after everything, could we ever—" His voice faltered. "I don't want to pressure you, but I don't want to lose what we had." Emma's eyes flicked with uncertainty, hurt. She gripped her arms tighter. "Right now, Oliver, I honestly don't know. My trust was shaken. I need more time to see if you're the same person I thought you were. Beyond the money and the name." She let out a shaky exhale. "And there's Luca to consider. He likes you. It's not fair to him if we're in some tangled mess." "I understand," Oliver said softly. "Take all the time you need. I'll wait." He forced a small smile. "Meanwhile, we'll survive Jonathan Reed's final inspection." Emma gave a half-hearted nod. "We will." Then, as if recalling another puzzle piece, she added, "What about your father? You said he doesn't know you're here. That's complicated." Oliver grimaced. "Yeah, I'm certain he'll be upset. But I'm prepared to stand my ground." A beat of silence. "If it means anything, Emma, the reason I'm telling you all this is because I want you in my life. If you'll let me. Money or no money." She looked at him with eyes that seemed weighted by weariness and lingering affection. "I hear you." Then, glancing away, she murmured, "I need to get ready for lunch. Thanks for talking." He stepped back, nodding. "Sure, and I'm sorry." She said nothing more, returning inside. Oliver lingered a moment in the patio's quiet, heart pounding with mingled relief and sadness. At least they'd spoken without anger, but her guarded composure told him nothing was resolved. By midday, Jonathan Reed reappeared, wearing a crisp suit and carrying a slim tablet. Carla bustled around him, pointing out small updates, fresh flowers in the lobby, polished railings on the stairs. Reed gave courteous nods, making no mention of Oliver's identity in front of her. Oliver stayed out of the spotlight, assisting guests from behind the scenes. Each time he crossed Reed's path, the man shot him a silent, understanding look, as if to say, "I'm almost done here. Be ready for what comes next." Around mid-afternoon, Carla assembled a few staff members, Oliver included, in the lounge area to thank them for coping with the inspection. Emma stood at the edge of the group, arms folded, face neutral. Carla beamed. "It looks like Mr. Reed is quite pleased with our work. We'll keep it up through tomorrow. After that, hopefully we'll get a positive review and can relax a bit." A polite cheer rose among the staff. Oliver clapped along, catching Emma's eye from across the small crowd. She gave a faint, polite smile, then turned away. He felt a hollow pang. With the gathering dispersed, Oliver followed Carla to her office, mustering courage. "Carla, can we talk privately for a minute?" She looked at him curiously. "Sure, Oliver." They stepped inside, closing the door. "Something on your mind?" He inhaled slowly, preparing to drop the bombshell. "This might sound strange, but I haven't been entirely honest about who I am." Her brow furrowed. "Okay, what do you mean?" He glanced at the walls, decorations that read, "Welcome to Riverside Boutique Hotel," pictures of staff outings, including a group shot where Oliver stood beside Emma, both smiling. "I'm Oliver Grayson. My family owns Grayson Hotels, including this one. I came here under a different name to learn the business without bias." Carla's eyes went wide, confusion turning to shock. "Grayson? Wait, like the Graysons who own this entire chain?" Her voice trembled slightly. "You're one of them?" He gave a small, regretful nod. "Yes, I'm sorry for the deception. I didn't do it to trick you or the staff, but to genuinely learn the ropes. I've discovered so much and grown to respect everyone here, you especially for running such a welcoming environment." Carla stood stunned, arms dropping to her sides. This is a lot to take in." She gazed at him, searching for an explanation. "And you've been working among us, folding sheets, waiting tables. For what? Fun? Research?" "Not exactly fun," Oliver murmured. "I was weary of always being seen as the heir. I wanted to prove, to myself really, that I could do real work, connect with people. I see now it was risky and maybe unfair to you all." Carla pressed a hand to her forehead. "My goodness. I mean, you've done a great job, you know? Everyone likes you, but I feel a bit betrayed." Oliver's stomach sank. "I understand. I'm sorry. If there's anything I can do to make it right." She drew in a breath, nodding slowly as if to steady herself. "We'll figure it out. I suppose you're not planning to fire us all or something crazy?" He shook his head fiercely. "No, never. The opposite. I believe this hotel is fantastic, thanks to you and the team. Jonathan Reed's inspection aligns with that. We're doing well. I want to maintain what makes this place special." Carla studied him a moment longer, then gave a half smile. "Well, that's good to hear. I guess I'll need time to process. But for now, let's keep this quiet from the rest of the staff until after Reed leaves? Or are you planning some big announcement?" Oliver exhaled. "I think we can keep it low-key for now. I just didn't want you blindsided." She nodded, her expression still tinged with surprise. "Thanks for telling me. And for what it's worth, Oliver, you've impressed me. Lying or not, you jumped in wherever needed. That shows something about your character." He felt a tiny flicker of relief. "Thank you, Carla." Leaving her office, Oliver tried to steady the adrenaline coursing through him. One step done, Carla knew. That still left the rest of the staff, who might find out sooner or later, and Emma, whose trust was the most fragile. He stepped into the hallway and nearly bumped into Jonathan Reed, who was heading in the opposite direction. Reed arched an eyebrow. "Everything all right?" Oliver managed a nod. "I told Carla. She's taking it as well as can be expected." Reed grunted, crossing his arms. "Good. Might be best to keep it contained until I finish the final paperwork tomorrow. Then I'm out of your hair." "Thanks," Oliver muttered. Reed gave a curt nod, then moved on. By dinner time, the usual rhythm of service resumed, but under it all, Oliver felt the shift. Carla now looked at him with newfound wariness, though she attempted normal conversation. Emma, still oblivious to Carla's discovery, stayed polite, yet distant. Midway through the evening, a minor crisis arose. One of the ovens malfunctioned, delaying several dinner orders. The chef cursed under his breath, staff scrambled, and Carla dashed to apologize to a table waiting on entrees. Oliver pitched in, ferrying bread baskets and offering free drinks to soothe frustrated guests. In the chaos, he and Emma crossed paths multiple times. At one table, a child dropped a fork under the chair. They both reached down to retrieve it, nearly colliding. It was a comical moment, but instead of sharing laughter, they avoided each other's gaze. Tension still weighed them down. At closing, Emma passed him in the corridor, carrying a tray of used glasses. He braced himself, catching her eye. "Need help?" She shook her head. "I'm good," then paused, her gaze softening slightly. "The oven fiasco was crazy, huh?" He forced a light chuckle. "Yeah, you handled it well, though. Kept the guests calm." She gave a brief nod. "Thanks." Silence stretched between them, both remembering how they used to banter in these moments, share inside jokes or tired smiles. Now the air felt thick with unspoken things. Oliver dared to speak. "Emma? Carla knows now about me. I just told her. So if you hear rumors..." She gave a tiny shrug. "I figured you'd do that eventually. It's good you told her the truth." He searched her face. "You're okay?" She set the tray aside on a rolling cart. "I'm still sorting it all out. I see how you're trying to fix this, though." She sighed, folding her arms. "I wish we could rewind to before I knew. But that's not possible, is it?" Pain twisted his chest. "No, it's not." She pressed her lips together. "Then let's just get through this inspection and keep things running. We can talk more once Reed's gone and the dust settles." He nodded, swallowing disappointment. "All right, I'll respect that." She pushed the rolling cart toward the kitchen, footsteps echoing softly. Oliver stood there, feeling as though they were two people caught between past closeness and present hurt. At least she was willing to let him keep trying. Later, Oliver learned from Carla that Jonathan Reed planned to do one final sweep tomorrow morning, then check out by noon. After that, he would finalize his report. Oliver crawled into bed in the small staff dorm, staring at the ceiling. By this time tomorrow, the inspection crisis would be resolved, But a bigger question loomed. Once Reed left, what came next? Would Oliver remain at the hotel openly as Grayson's heir, or bow out and return to his father's world, leaving Emma and everyone else behind? He'd grown to cherish this place, its simpler routines, the genuine staff, the meaningful bond he'd begun with Emma. But was there a future here if she no longer believed in him? And if his father demanded he come back to the corporate fold, would Oliver stand firm? His phone buzzed, jarring him. He checked the screen. Dylan. Sighing, he answered. "Yeah, Dylan? Hey, just a heads up. Reed's last email to HQ had no mention of you, so that's good. But your father might sniff out something eventually. You should prepare for a conversation." "Great," Oliver muttered, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Well, at least he won't find out tomorrow. That gives me a bit more time." Dylan hesitated. "And Emma?" Oliver's throat constricted. "She's still hurt, but we're talking. Slowly." "All right, good luck, man," Dylan said. "Keep me posted." Hanging up, Oliver let the phone drop onto the bed. Tomorrow promised relief from Reed's inspection, but his personal storm was far from over. He tried to steady himself with the memory of Emma's softened look. Maybe there was still a glimmer of hope. He closed his eyes, one thought throbbing at his core. He would fight for this place, this life, and Emma's trust if she let him. If not, he'd face that heartbreak too. But he wouldn't leave without at least trying to make things right. Morning arrived with a haze of early sunlight filtering through high, thin clouds. It felt like the entire Riverside Boutique Hotel was on pause, waiting for Jonathan Reed to finish his final round of inspection. Oliver had slept only fitfully, haunted by questions about what would happen next, and above all, whether he and Emma could ever recapture the closeness they'd shared. By 7:30, Oliver was helping at the front desk, greeting bleary-eyed travelers who came to check out or inquire about breakfast. Carla bustled around, her usual confident smile tinged with the knowledge of Oliver's hidden identity. Occasionally, her eyes flicked to him, reflecting curiosity, but she said nothing about his confession. She still seemed to be grappling with the news. Emma, for her part, was preparing the dining room for the breakfast rush. Oliver caught a glimpse of her unfolding tablecloths. She worked quietly, lips pressed in a determined line. He tried not to stare, but every now and then she glanced his way, and he saw that same guarded awareness. They had ended the previous day with a shaky truce. No outright hostility, but no comfortable ease either. Jonathan Reed appeared in the lobby around 8:01 a.m., wearing a crisp suit and carrying his tablet. He signaled Carla and Oliver to join him briefly. The three stood near the reception counter, staff drifting by with polite nods. "I'll be checking out by noon," Reed announced. "I've finalized most of my notes. The property is well run, no major flaws that can't be remedied with minor investments. My recommendation to Grayson HQ will be favorable." Carla let out a breath, beaming. "That's wonderful news, Mr. Reed. Thank you." Reed gave a curt nod, turning to Oliver. "A word in private before I go?" Oliver's pulse jumped. "Of course." The two of them stepped to a quieter corner of the lobby. Reed tapped his tablet lightly against his palm. "I'll keep your personal involvement out of the official report. But that doesn't mean your father won't eventually learn about this. He has ways of noticing changes, particularly if staff mention anything." Oliver stood straighter. "I'll handle that conversation. Thank you for allowing me time." A faint flicker of understanding crossed Reed's face. "I admit it's still a strange situation, Oliver, but in some way, I respect that you rolled up your sleeves. This hotel benefits from an heir who actually bothered to see the ground-level work." Oliver felt a wave of relief and nodded. "I appreciate your discretion." Reed checked his watch. "I'll finalize a last walkthrough, then I'm gone." He hesitated, lowering his voice. "If you remain here openly, there may be questions. Be prepared, and if you leave, make sure the staff know they're not being abandoned." The words hung in the air. stark reminders of Oliver's crossroads. "I understand," he murmured. Reed departed, and Oliver returned to the desk. Carla approached, fiddling with a pen. "So we pass with flying colors, apparently." He managed a faint smile. "Yes, which is a credit to you and everyone else." Carla shifted her weight. "What about you, Oliver? Do you plan on staying? I mean, once Reed leaves and your father possibly finds out." A complicated swirl of emotion hit him. "I'm not entirely sure. I don't want to just vanish, but I have to see how things play out." She studied him for a moment. "Well, whatever you decide, I won't pretend I'm not surprised. But I can't deny you've worked hard and fit in. So, from my standpoint, you're welcome here. Let's just ensure we handle staff reactions carefully." Relief loosened the knot in his chest. "Thank you, Carla." By mid-morning, Reed had completed his final circuit of hallways and guest rooms. He returned to the lobby, gave Carla a polite handshake, and beckoned Oliver aside. "All done here. Keep me updated on your next steps," he said, voice low. Oliver nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Reed retrieved his luggage, nodded goodbye, and exited through the front doors. Just like that, the formal inspection was over. Carla expelled a long breath, smiling. "We did it! No more walking on eggshells." She turned to Oliver. "Though I guess for you, it's not so simple." Oliver managed a small, wry grin. "No, it isn't. But at least now we can settle into normal operations again." She patted his shoulder. "You've still got a place here. Employee or heir, whatever you decide." Her voice softened. "If you want to keep working incognito, I won't blab. But that might get complicated." Oliver gave her a grateful nod. "I'll think it through." He drifted into the dining room afterward, where Emma was clearing dishes from a late breakfast table. She glanced up but didn't speak, focusing on gathering plates. Heart pounding, Oliver approached. "Reed is leaving," he said softly. "Everything went fine." She nodded, setting cups on a tray. "That's good news for the hotel." He hesitated. "Listen, I'm going to be honest with the rest of the staff. Maybe not a big announcement, but I'll tell them individually. At least the core team that I've worked with closely. It's only fair they hear it from me." Emma still didn't meet his eyes. "That makes sense." A short silence fell, thick with the weight of all that was unspoken. At last, he inhaled. "Could we talk after your shift tonight? I'd like to share my plans and just talk." She ran a cloth along the tabletop, her shoulders tense. "All right," she said finally. "After dinner service, I'll wait in the lobby." He mustered a whisper of a smile. "Thank you, Emma." The day crawled by in a swirl of housekeeping requests, check-ins, and minor maintenance tasks. With Reed gone, everyone relaxed. Some staff even joked that the big boss's henchman had finally left. Oliver realized with a pang that soon the truth about him being that big boss's son would ripple through these halls. By late afternoon, Oliver decided to start telling a select few employees. He found the head chef in the kitchen, explained quietly, and braced for the reaction. The chef was stunned, eyes bulging, then gave Oliver a playful whack on the arm. "You sneaky devil! Could have fooled me with your dishwashing skills." But the chef seemed more amused than angry. He told a senior housekeeper next, who frowned in disbelief, then shrugged and said, "As long as you don't cut my hours, we're fine. We liked you as Oliver the co-worker." That brought a wave of relief. Little by little, word spread among the older staff. Some were flabbergasted, others somewhat impressed. Only one or two felt truly upset, grumbling that they'd been tricked. But after Oliver apologized and assured them he was here to help, they gradually softened. He realized how lucky he was that his attitude these past weeks had earned him goodwill. Carla assisted discreetly, pulling aside a few staff members to explain. By dinner time, the majority of the core team knew. Some gave Oliver teasing grins, others shook their heads in amazement. But no one seemed hostile. Emma, however, remained subdued, focusing on her tasks. The dinner rush was moderate, letting Oliver and Emma move smoothly between tables. The tension between them still simmered, though. Guests chatted obliviously, not realizing the personal drama happening behind the warm smiles of their servers. Finally, the shift ended. After the last table left, Carla closed out the register, and staff trickled away. Oliver stood near the reception desk, heart thrumming, waiting. Emma was in the back, placing her apron in a laundry bin, running fingers through her hair as though steeling herself. She emerged in her regular clothes, a simple sweater and jeans, then approached him with a guarded expression. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'm ready to talk." Carla, noticing the exchange, gave Oliver an encouraging nod before discreetly retreating to her office. The lobby was quiet, only the faint hum of lights overhead. Oliver gestured toward a small seating area where plush chairs were arranged around a low table. They sat facing each other. Oliver's pulse hammered. "Thank you for giving me this time. I know it's been complicated." Emma folded her hands in her lap. "Yes, so how do you see this going now that the inspection is done? Are you staying? Going back to your father's world?" He inhaled deeply. "That's what I wanted to figure out. I'd like to stay here, at least for a while. I've come to value the work, the people, and you." He swallowed. "But I also have to face my father eventually." She nodded, eyes downcast. "And what if he demands you leave?" Oliver clenched his jaw. "I'm prepared to stand up to him. He can't force me out. I'm an adult, capable of making my own decisions. Yes, there might be financial consequences, maybe tension in the family, but I'd rather be somewhere meaningful than comfortable in a lie." Emma raised her gaze. "Meaningful," she repeated softly. "And you truly find that here?" His voice cracked. "Yes. I've never felt so genuine. The friendships I've formed, the everyday challenges. It feels real." He shifted, steeling himself. "But none of it matters to me without you and Luca. You're the reason I realized how much I was missing. He paused, searching for the right phrase. "I love you, Emma. I think I have for a while now." Her eyes shone with tears, but her expression remained guarded. "You lied about your identity, but you say this is true. It's hard to reconcile those two things." Oliver leaned forward, every nerve raw. "I know, and I'd understand if you can't forgive me. But please believe that my feelings are not a lie. I never once faked that. Every moment with you was the highlight of my day." A tear escaped the corner of her eye. She brushed it away. "I wish you'd told me from the start, or at least earlier. I thought we had something so open and honest." Then discovering the secret, it shook me. He nodded, throat tight. "I can't undo that damage. All I can do is move forward with honesty, ask you to give me another chance, to let me rebuild your trust." She looked into his eyes, her voice trembling. "And how do I explain this to Luca? He adores you, Oliver. He'll want to see you, but if we end up parted for good, that'll break his little heart." Oliver felt tears prick his own eyes. "I wouldn't want to do that. Luca deserves stability, and so do you. If you need more time, weeks, months, I'll wait." He swallowed. "If your final decision is that you can't be with me, I'll still respect it. But I'm asking you not to shut the door on us just yet." Emma let out a shaky breath, silent for a long moment. The tension in the lobby seemed to magnify every subtle sound. The click of the central air, the faint hum of the fridge at the nearby snack bar. Finally she spoke, voice hushed. "You realize we're from different worlds, right? Even if we move past the lie, there's the class difference. Your father might disapprove, or your social circle might judge. I'm just a single mom who can barely make rent some months." Oliver's heart squeezed. "I don't care about that. I admire your strength, your independence. That's part of why I fell for you. And if my father or anyone else judges, that's their problem, not ours." A flicker of hope lit her eyes, quickly tempered by caution. "It's easy to say, but living it could be harder." He nodded earnestly. "I know, but I'm ready to try." She drew in a trembling breath, shoulders sagging as if letting go of a heavy weight. "All right," she whispered. "I'm not promising everything is magically fixed, but I don't want to lose what we had either. I want to try to trust you again." Relief flooded Oliver's chest, so intense he almost felt dizzy. "Thank you. I promise you won't regret it. I'll do anything to earn your trust back, step by step, on your timeline." Emma's tears finally slipped free. She sniffed, giving a watery laugh. "I can't believe I'm crying in the hotel lobby. This is so unprofessional." Oliver reached for her hand, gently. "It's just the two of us." She allowed him to hold her fingers, turning her face away briefly to gather herself. Then, with a subtle squeeze of his palm, she met his gaze. "Where do we start?" Oliver breathed a bittersweet smile. "Maybe with honesty. I'll keep being transparent about everything. My family, my finances, my plans. I'll show you exactly who I am, and we'll figure out what a future looks like together." Emma nodded slowly. "That's all I ask." In that hush, they both rose from the chairs. Oliver felt a pull in his chest, wanting to embrace her, to solidify this fragile reconciliation, but he also sensed it might be too soon. Yet Emma hesitated, eyes lingering on him, and he recognized a similar longing mirrored there. Gently, he moved closer. She didn't pull away. Slowly, he placed a hand on her cheek, leaning in. Their lips brushed in a tender, tentative kiss, a step away from the heartbreak that had shadowed them. Emma exhaled shakily, tears still clinging to her lashes, but her free hand slid to rest on Oliver's arm. They broke apart, foreheads lightly touching. "Thank you," he whispered, overwhelmed by relief and affection. "I'll never lie to you again." She closed her eyes, nodding. "I'll hold you to that." A soft cough echoed from the hallway. They turned, spotting Carla peeking around the corner with an apologetic grin. "Didn't mean to interrupt. Everything okay here?" Oliver and Emma exchanged a glance. Emma managed a small, genuine smile. "We're working on it, Carla." Carla's own smile widened. "Glad to hear it." With a knowing nod, she disappeared, leaving them alone again. Hand in hand, Oliver and Emma walked out of the seating area. The hotel lights glowed warmly, a reflection of the sense of relief settling over Oliver's heart. He still owed answers to his father, and the staff might need time to adapt to the fact that Oliver the waiter was also Oliver the heir. But for now, in this quiet moment, one thing was certain. Emma was willing to try, to see if they could build a life together, money or no money. Outside, the dusk had turned the sky into a tapestry of purples and reds. They paused by the doors, breathing in the evening air. Oliver brushed a thumb over Emma's hand, and she squeezed his fingers in reply. The day felt like the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, where truth, though painful, offered the hope of a more authentic bond. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, they had each other, a second chance. And Oliver Grayson, who once ran from his name and responsibilities, stood ready to face them, bolstered by a woman whose love he'd do anything to honor. The Riverside Boutique Hotel, with all its everyday warmth and struggles, had given him the gift of genuine connection. He would guard that gift fiercely, starting now with Emma by his side. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen